This episode is brought to you by Hack Motion. Hack Motion is a cutting-edge wrist sensor for teaching wrist motion for compressed tour-like shots. I spent some time with these guys down at the show, and I really enjoyed how easy it was to use, and the calibration time was super simple, and especially the biofeedback option that will definitely make for a more effective golf lesson for your students. You can use it with your iPhone, your iPad, and it gives your students the feel to go along with the reel as you teach the proper wrist motion for better club face control, which, as you know, is huge in the teaching game. Used by some of the top coaches in our industry, Hack Motion is a must for serious golf teachers, coaches, or players. Also, when ordering upon checkout, use the promo code GURU, G-U-R-U, to receive free shipping, which is a $30 value. For more information and to order, visit their website at hackmotion.com. HACKMOTION.com today. This episode is brought to you by enviedhemp.com. So let's talk CBD for a minute. It's all over the news, and there are so many PGA Tour players using it, such as Phil Mickelson and Bubba Watson, to name a few, but there are many others, and now some top teachers, including myself, are taking advantage of this amazing product. But what is it exactly? Short for cannabidiol, CBD is a chemical compound from the cannabis plant. It's a naturally occurring substance that's used in products like oils and roll-ons to impart a feeling of relaxation and calm and to reduce inflammation as well. Now, it doesn't get you stoned, but it has many organic rejuvenating effects. One of my favorite brands is Envied. Their CBD products come in 3 varieties: Relief, Clarity, and Relax. Relief CBD products help relieve pain and those sore muscles. Clarity allows you to focus on those critical shots or whatever the task is at hand. And Relax CBD products are for those anxious golf moments or those moments in your life when you just need to take the edge off. I would not endorse any product that I didn't use personally, and I can tell you that I've been testing this stuff for over a month now, and it's a game changer. I take a drop of Relax right before bed, and it's helped me get some of the best sleep that I've had in years, which, for those that know me, I'm up all the time with a busy mind, so it's really helped, and I feel so much better in the morning after just getting some deep REM sleep for a change. I also take a drop of the Clarity in the morning with my coffee to kind of get my day started, which is giving me an alertness and a focus that I have never experienced in my life. It's just unbelievable. I also use the roll-on for some sore muscles and joints after a run or a workout. Right now, I have an incredible offer for you. Go to enviedhemp.com and use the promo code GURU20, that's G-U-R-U and the number 20, for a 20% discount for life. You heard it right, 20% discount for life. Go check it out. I'm telling you, it's a game changer in golf and in your life. Now let's get to this week's episode.
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
You know how to cut to the core of me, Baxter. You're so wise. But like a miniature Buddha covered in hair.
I want to become a guru so girls will like me. Then I will like myself.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1. No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
And that's it! Now let's do this!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Golf Guru Show. I'm your host, Jason Sutton, and I'm the Guru. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for supporting the podcast. Make sure you hit that purple subscribe button so you get all of the updates on the upcoming shows as soon as they come out so you don't miss a thing. My guest on the show today needs no introduction. For those of you who have followed the podcast, this will be his 3rd episode, so you know it's going to be fire. Mr. Chris Trevino is joining me live, basically in Casa Guru, as we chop it up, sitting on the couch, having a bottle of wine after a very interesting and enjoyable weekend where he came down to spend some time shadowing and also taking a lesson. So we did some full swing work, but more importantly, he wanted some putting help. So I took him through an entire protocol of what I would consider a thorough putting lesson that lasted 2.5 to 3 hours. So we talk about that. He's got obviously some great stories to share, as he is probably one of the best storytellers that I've ever been around. For those of you that haven't listened to his previous episodes, then go back and check out episode 41 and 56. You Don't Know Me Bro, and then You Don't Know Me Bro Part 2, which were two of the most popular episodes of the podcast to date. So it was great to have Chris come down and spend the weekend and really, hang out. And I wish I would have had a mic on both of us the whole weekend, because we had some really awesome discussions that didn't make the podcast. So we were in the late stages of the last day, roughly 10:30 at night, and then we just decided we've got to put down something, so we got to go for it. So brought out the mics, opened another bottle of wine, and then this happened. So I hope you find it entertaining. There's a lot of great information here. We go through his experience of the lesson, which I think is fascinating, because it's one thing for the coach to talk about what he did, and I was treating Chris obviously like a student, but also like a teacher. So I was talking sort of out of both sides of my mouth on this deal to help his instruction, but also help his game. So it's interesting to get his take on the lesson and what he felt as a student, which I think is super helpful. And we've talked about that on this podcast before, is taking a lesson as opposed to just observing a lesson, and how you can get some real benefit that can help your game and also help your instruction. He's got some great Mac stories, so you want to stick around for that, and some good stuff that you won't expect. So hope you enjoy this awesome conversation with my good friend, the brilliant and talented Mr. Chris Trevino. What's up, Chris?
Hey, buddy. How we doing?
Good, man. Welcome back to the show. The third time.
The infamous third time.
Right?
We've been threatening that we were going to do this, and looks like we're going to do it.
So officially the first time we've been not remote, but you're here,
Yep.
live and in person, and we're on the couch having a glass of wine.
I mean,
It doesn't get much better than this.
it definitely doesn't.
So let's taste this wine, because I think that's a big part of what's going to happen tonight, is like your education,
Exactly.
right? So because why are you here? Why tell the listeners why you're here first, and then we'll get into the wine.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of putting questions that I needed to get answered. This whole wine education thing is just a really nice addition to the other things I've been learning for the last few days. But my original intent was to shadow you a little bit, come out and hit a few balls, get a few lessons, mostly on the putting side, and then to see if that stuff that we had worked on my full swing was had crept in or not from the Scott Kauk's seminar.
Right. Yeah.
And you've been gracious enough to let me stay at your house, which was nice. And I'm just enjoying the moment, man, and enjoying your company and having some wine.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that. I think that's going to be a big part of it, because I want you to share with the listeners your perspective from a student,
Okay.
right, trying to play, and then also from some of the things we've talked about teaching wise, right? And then we've got some cool stories that have come out over the weekend that I wasn't even aware of, that I think could be very, very entertaining, as you are maybe the best storyteller and now becoming, a cult figure on the Golf Guru show.
Totally.
Yeah. So,
Totally.
But let's give this wine
Let's get these downloads
a
up.
sniff. Okay. Let's give it the wine a sniff first. Like, just smell it.
Okay. I'm smelling.
All right. So what do you smell? How would you describe that? This is part of your golf training.
Jeez, man, you're putting me on the spot now. I'm gonna sound like a total idiot right now.
No, it's okay. And just to give the listeners a little context, you're not a wine guy.
No, not at all.
Okay. We've had some vodka,
Yes, and some tequila.
tequila in the last few days, and now we finally get to my lane,
Yep.
which is this is a Cabernet.
Yep. It just smells kind of fruity to me. Almost
Really?
Like
Okay.
almost like a apricot or something. I don't know.
Really? Okay. All right.
That's what I'm smelling.
I'm getting more like I'm totally, and that's what we were talking about at dinner tonight. Like, you know, when you start getting into it, a lot of people ask me like, how do I get into wine? And I'm like, you've got to just drink it, right? Because your palate's going to change every time you start. You know, you taste more and more different
Sure.
varietals.
Sure.
Then things are going to change. I'm getting more of a leather sort of.
Okay.
Little sniffy sniff there.
Yeah, I didn't want to say like it
Yeah,
had
I mean,
an alcohol-y like.
yeah. Well, and in wine, it's got 11% alcohol, so it's
Okay.
like that's gonna come out a lot of times, and maybe to the detriment of the wine.
Right.
Sometimes, but definitely, yeah. It's like there's a blackberry.
The hell you got me doing drinking leather, man? I mean, who wants to drink leather?
It's just it's the way it's part of it.
I hear you.
Yeah. So it's like, you start smelling this thing.
There we go. So maybe it wasn't apricot. Maybe it's some kind of berry thing. But
Yeah,
it's a very strong.
It's more. Yeah, it's more of a blackberry. So give it a little bit of a drink. Like, and don't drink it. Just put it in your mouth. Swish it around a little bit. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely berry.
Different, right? Yeah.
So
So you start to get a little bit of that. So it's kind of like golf teaching or golf instruction, to where, depending on where you're at, is how you sort of perceive the information, right?
Sure, 100%.
So talk a little bit about what you, because it would be interesting to hear your perspective of the putting lesson that I spent 2.5 hours with you yesterday with putting.
Right.
Like, good or bad. I mean, you can tell me that I'm full of crap,
Right.
but give the listeners a little context of like what did you learn, and then sort of how you perceive the information.
Okay. Well, I think, first of all, one of the things that I would think, if this podcast is sort of somewhat geared towards a lot of guys like us, and in particular like me, that are getting into the teaching game and wanting to, hear from other great instructors and different insights that they have and different tactics that they use with their players, I bet it's probably a pretty rare thing, especially if you're a full-time instructor, to leave your comfort zone of what's become teaching and now all of a sudden put the student hat back on, which you probably don't even think about wearing anymore. And now if you really want to give the information a fair shot, you have to remove your particular viewpoints and kind of show up with an empty cup as a student. And
right.
And I found that to be a hell of a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Now my story is a little bit different, obviously, and most of the people that have heard your podcast understand that I was a player before I was a coach. So I do hold certain things, about my game, at a certain level, and I've leaned on those things so many times that you start to think that there's probably no other way to do it than the way you've had success doing it.
Sure. Yeah.
So when I had to sort of immediately start taking, guidance, there was a little bit of a tug of war going on for sure, because, I was like, well, this doesn't seem right, and I'm way off here, and I don't think of it that way. And so once I kind of just settled down and was able to sort of, remove the "you don't know me, bro" side,
yeah,
the stubborn side that just wants to go on the course and whack someone
and be right.
Yeah, and be right.
Be correct.
Right? Yeah,
and
be correct.
That's a big part of it.
I found it to be extremely insightful because I was, I always tell, my guys that work for me, anytime you can learn something new, either about yourself or the game, consider that to be a pretty blessed day, at the office.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was jumping through some pretty sweet learning hoops when I was able to sort of kind of just relax and let my mind just be, an empty cup and just take on a new perspective of putting and what you were sharing with me.
Yeah, and so kind of take the listeners through the process,
okay,
and the scenario of like what we did, and then what you learned, and then what you like, just your take on the whole thing. I think it would be interesting. Again, I'm just asking from a coach's perspective. It's always
right
helpful for me because we don't get to sometimes we don't get the truth from our students, right? I mean, it's like it's a very common scenario where our students are like telling us what we want to hear, right? And then we're boys, and so we've had a really awesome weekend talking a lot about the stuff
that
we're going to get into. But it's always interesting to hear from because you're a very, very high level player, so it's basically like working with a tour player for the first time, right? And I told you, like, when you came, I was like, all right, I'm going to treat you like one of my newest tour players that I don't even know.
Right.
And this is sort of the process that I go through. And also I was helping you as far as like your teaching stuff too, right? Yeah, I was doing a little bit of both.
And maybe that's why my brain was a little scrambled because I was trying to go back and forth between,
for sure. And
between
it's difficult.
player and coach. But, I'll be honest. So, the first thing for the listeners, the first thing he did with me was he just put a thumbtack marker about 8 feet out in front of me and asked me to finish the ball there on a slightly downhill putt that didn't look like it had very much, movement one way or another, horizontally. And I kind of my first instinct was like, dude, really, bro? Like, really? You think this shit's going to fix me right now? Like, come on, dude. This is a joke. And when I nuked the first one about 18 inches past the mark from 8 feet, and you felt like a 20 handicap, I'm like, okay, you need to check this ego at the door a little bit, because apparently your ability to roll a ball 8 feet and you rolled it 9.5, almost 10, that needs to change.
So the first skill we talked about was what? Stopping the ball where you want to stop it.
Yep.
Seems super basic, but
100%.
There's a lot into that scenario.
And so, he would give me 5 ball sets, and as I'm assuming a good player would, the kind of pattern was emerging where I was not correct on the first 2 putts, and then the third putt was an adjustment, and then the fourth and fifth putts were laying out almost perfect to where the first one should have been the first time. Mm-hmm. So I was making corrections the way I needed to, but my initial ability to perform that skill, which is the way it would happen on the course, because you don't get 5 tries at a certain putt, I wasn't as good at that as I thought I would be. So that was obviously telling me that I was having a disconnect with the finishing aspect of the putt wasn't a strong connection point for me. And that was something that I didn't know I wasn't good at, because you kind of just don't know what you don't know. You just assume because you can shoot under par that you get the speed right all the time. But apparently when the speed was the only thing I needed to do, I wasn't as good at that as I thought I would be.
Yeah, exactly. So then we discussed the
rope.
Well, I'm saying even before that, like, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here as far as like what I'm thinking, right? So I'm looking at what you're telling me, the answers you're giving me to the questions, because I think if you can remind the listeners of like when I ask you like what your putts tend to look like, that were short and low, right? You don't 3-putt much. So kind of get, just kind of give them the picture. You don't 3-putt much, but you don't make as many as you would like to make from like 8 to 15 feet, and you tend to miss them like low and short.
Right.
So that's in the back of my mind right away, and we sort of saw that when we were doing that test. So after I did the downhill putt, I gave you a right to left putt and then a left to right putt, and then we added some distance to it.
Yep.
And this was after I'd already
put you on
Sam Putt Lab, right? And we typically I won't share that with the student,
right?
But again, I was sort of feeding into your teaching side and your playing side at the same time. So I was like, all right, let's go through the Sam report, and kind of look at it. So we found that maybe the face was a little bit too open going in the backstroke. We had a right aim situation with a right miss situation and an open face, right? So it was pretty cut and dry as far as like the pattern that we were seeing.
Sure.
So right away, me from the teacher's standpoint, and then I shared this with you during the lesson, is you're going to be much better on right to left putts than on left to right putts, and that seemed to be accurate.
Especially if I could get it to the hole.
Right. Yeah. So it was, yeah, exactly. So and we talked, and your pace was actually pretty good.
Right.
Acceleration profile was very good. It was almost like a decreasing acceleration profile, which I enjoy.
The rise angle was good.
Yeah, everything, launch conditions were good. So we were sort of checking all the boxes that we were checking, and then the low-hanging fruit was, okay, we need to get the start direction maybe a little better, but most of it was intention.
Yep.
Right? So it was intention and picture. So then talk about a little bit of your experience of when we went through the whole green reading piece, and then me showing you the anatomy of the putt.
Yeah, so when you gave me a giant sort of python looking black rope that was like 30 feet long, and it was like this flexi rope that could curve in whatever direction you wanted to. You just asked me to paint a picture of this uphill 30-footer that was on the side of a mountain, breaking right to left, and I kind of was able, again, because this part of me that's like, dude, really? Like, okay, bro. If
you don't know me, bro.
If I hit it here, I'm just a dipshit anyway. But okay, yeah, it breaks a ton and it's uphill, and so I'm gonna kind of just graph this like arc out. And I had this kind of like very non-aesthetically pleasing looking curve that I painted in about I don't know, maybe 45 seconds at the most,
maybe 15.
Oh, okay, sorry. 15. And it wasn't that the putt couldn't have been made on that line. It was just I found it interesting that was a way that you tested me as to how detail oriented I am about this picture that I'm creating and what the putt looks like, and then does that have any bearing on the way I'm going to putt this putt? And I think it was pretty telling that the casualness that I took to the read says a lot about kind of how I would have just sacrificed this as a 2-putt, because that's how my brain works at this point.
Right.
Because if I'm seeing this putt with all this thing, then I go into a tour pro trying to cash a check mindset, which is, okay, I just need to get out of here without doing anything stupid. And then it just becomes like a sacrificial lamb, when if you did have a system in which you conducted your business with on the greens, then this would be no different than any other putt you hit. And you might never know, just your attention to detail and your ability to repeat the things you do well could lead to the hole just getting in the way of this ball and you making a putt that you wouldn't have necessarily made otherwise.
Yeah, so we talked about the picture and the anatomy, starting more with the intention in mind, which was the original skill set drill. Right, just putting to the ball marker, to the poker chip, and then reverse engineering that back to the golf ball.
Yep.
And what did we find? What were you focusing too much on?
The start
line, right?
The start line of the putt.
Yeah, the first third of the putt, which I think I find that a lot with good players that struggle, as they lose sight of what the last part of the curve looks like, and then where the ball needs to be at that point in the putt.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was kind of
probably
our first aha moment.
Yep, totally. And then the fact that there was this, thing you're calling the drop zone or whatever.
Drop point.
Yeah. Which is different than the aim point or the start line.
Yes.
And then there's these different marks, and that's when my brain was kind of just like going 100 miles an hour, and I was like feeling like I was about to just rip apart, the putter. But just to know that there's certain things you're doing from behind the ball. When you're creating this picture, there's these other areas of focus that sort of supersede, need to supersede for me to be an effective putter. I need to start focusing my attention on other areas of the putt as opposed to just this fictitious ability that I'm going to get the speed part right and all the drop point and everything else is going to take care of itself if I just get the start line right.
Yeah.
And that's just not true. There's going to be other things going on if I don't check all the boxes off.
Yeah, I think that was huge. The external focus of
making me commit to where the ball would be if the hole wasn't there.
Yes,
is pretty. It's almost like it's one of those things where it's like so obvious when it gets pointed out to you, but the fact that I've never ever thought about the hole not being a hole, the hole just being like a piece of real estate that the ball rolls over.
I like that.
That was not a thing for me. Like for me, I think the hole was a hole and the ball was supposed to finish inside that hole. Mm-hmm. And so I never really painted pictures of where the ball would move as if the hole wasn't a hole.
Right.
And that was like blowing my mind. That part was like, whoa, dude, you're going on a whole nother level right now. Like, cause I don't do that. Like that's not anything I do, not anything I teach. And it's certainly not anything I do when I putt.
Yeah. And then we also discussed the one of the things that I learned from Mark Sweeney. I think last year's Aim Point Summit was the perception of curve often, especially for better players, is much flatter than what they see. Because when you drew out the rope, it was very, very
almost like a question mark.
Yeah, it was a lot of curve that had some like right angles almost to it.
Hey, get easy.
Yeah. So it was a bit more than, but it was very typical of what I've observed with good players. And so we broke out the little circle entry point, aim point percentage.
Yeah, the step meter deal.
And we started rolling some putts, and as soon as you start to see where the ball is actually going to enter, which is much lower than you think, and this was probably, I think it was a 4% slope.
Yeah,
the putt we were dealing with, it's much flatter than you would even perceive. But in your defense, you figured out that over your playing career that the higher line was the safer line. Right? So I mean, not that you're going to make as many putts, but you're not going to 3-putt as much, which is, I mean, it's pretty smart.
Yeah.
But when you start to deal with, all right, where's the acceptability of we've called sort of the shot cone or the curve, then that opened your eyes to all the solutions to the problem. Right? Mm-hmm. And for you, it has to be, really starting with intention.
Yes. Hogan. What's up, Hogan?
My dog just came into the room, of course.
Yeah, no, that's 100% what I took away from, I mean, a multitude of things. All the different abilities to practice these skills. And just the fact that these skills are things that I wasn't necessarily interpreting as a skill.
Okay.
All right.
So what were we talking about? Putting lesson.
Putting lesson.
Yep.
And
So we're talking about the rope, talking about intention.
yep. And just how big of a, I guess how, if you don't have that, then I'm not sure the rest of the stuff matters that much.
Yeah, at this point, I've not messed with your mechanics at
Yep.
all.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah, and we discussed that. I'm thinking you're probably, and this is, you're probably not alone, an hour into the lesson, and the coach has not messed with my stroke yet.
Correct.
Was that a concern for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've really, like I've told you, I've really struggled with how to hold the putter.
Yeah. So
for
in your
many
mind,
years.
you've got a conception of like, all right, well, this is what I think he needs to fix.
Right, of course. And
Yeah.
I know I move around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I've just had kind of sloppy lower body movement, some kind of, just seeing my stroke on video, seems like my head wants to kind of move maybe a little bit back in the stroke a little bit. And I got some God, it sounds like a 20 handicap, but it's like I think my knees are moving around. I got pressure shifting all over the place, so it's like, I just am thinking that that's a bigger issue than this, than what we're talking about.
Sure.
But if I don't have this in my back pocket and I don't have these systems built in, because I guess now the way I look at it is like, all that stuff is easy to fix. It's just discipline to do some different drills and to figure out a way to hold the putter, right? But if you don't have the nuts and bolts of how to paint a picture and how to keep that picture in your head and how to putt to that picture and making sure that picture is functional and correct and it has the right delivery speed behind it and all these other concepts that I was, becoming in touch with, it's all for nothing. You could have the best stroke in the world, but it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, and not that start line's not important, right? It was just that you were so locked in, right? So when and this is again coming from the teacher side, talking to the teacher. Once we developed the picture, you drew out the rope, and I asked you to describe where you're going to aim to create or make that curve show up. You put the tee in the ground maybe almost halfway to the hole, right? So it wasn't even completely to the apex.
Right.
It was very, very short, right? So it kind of showed me where your focus was, which was definitely in the first third of the putt.
Yep.
So then we did it again. I said, well, all right, well, then we had this discussion, and then I told you, all right, now we're going to add the hole and just sort of figure out this whole dynamic of the anatomy. But I want you to extend your vision out to at least even with the hole. And how'd that make you feel?
Well, it obviously
Got you on the couch right now, yeah.
Well, I was rejecting that because the next time you asked me to do it, I was about 2 feet short of pin high.
Yeah, you didn't do it.
I still didn't get it all the way there.
You didn't listen to what I told you.
No. So I was still doing this is my shit, bro. You don't run this show. I run this show. So you were like, hey, let's go all the way to the hole. I was like, oh damn. And I wasn't trying to defy you. It's just it was like a big jump for me just to move the tee that much farther forward. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Towards the hole. So yeah, it was interesting. And I was like, oh God, he did say that. I was like, why am I not doing that? And then it's like, God, come on, let's go. So then I started doing it after that. Yeah,
it's difficult to transition into the student and, like you said, be open to all right, whatever he says, I'll do. Mm-hmm. Even though you were like, all right, there's an angel and a devil fighting on your shoulder right now to go. I know what I'm doing. I know,
right.
I just need to tell him what I think I know and what I think I need to do instead of listening to what.
God,
totally.
I
mean, how many students do we have that are probably doing the same thing, right?
Oh man, completely. It was, I mean, and again, processing, that night or even, this morning when I got up, it was just really putting yourself in that vulnerable student position. you just, things just are, you're looking at the glass from just a different angle, than you traditionally look at it. And I think if I could give any advice to any of the other instructors listening, it would be, when you're choosing, because we talk a lot about shadowing on this podcast and mentorship and going to, and, paying it forward, and, anybody that's asking to come shadow you, you should feel honored and all this stuff. But like, maybe we should also, start saying, hey, if the guy's willing for you to come shadow, maybe he's willing for you to pay his fee and go take a lesson from him.
Yeah.
For an hour. Maybe you pay 50% of his fee because he's going to hook you up or whatever. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't charge you. That's not the point. The point is, put yourself in that student's position, see how it feels to be a student, see how it feels to take a lesson, and then watch what this kind of master of his craft is doing from the outside looking in. Because I can 100% tell the listeners that if and there was another tour pro on the green with us, if I was just watching you work with this other tour pro that doesn't hold any of the things that I hold near and dear to me about putting, I would have never gotten what I got out of the experience just by watching. I would have been like, oh, cool. I would have walked away with like some cool drills to do for my kids and my students.
Yeah.
And I would have walked away with some different scenarios, but I would have never felt that angel and that devil tug of warring, and I would have never kind of struggled through some of the things I was struggling with, because I would have just been watching going, oh, I can do that. Oh, fuck, I can do that.
Yeah, it's easy.
And that's easy. Like,
in.
Oh, dude, what's the matter? You can't stop a ball 8 feet on a downhill. You hack. It's like, yeah. And then when you knock it, 2 feet by, you're like, okay, check that. So yeah, I think maybe one of the things for going forward for the podcast, maybe we should be advocating for, people to take a lesson. And, you had told me about Carbone.
Yeah.
That was one of his things, and I think, on top of him being just a great guy and a great teacher, I think him doing that affected his way of looking at teaching, and the way he probably perceives things, I'm sure, is vastly different because of his experiences.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Jason Carbone, because he's probably taken more lessons from top teachers than anybody, and you've taken a lot of lessons from top teachers over the years.
Right.
So just sort of, again, finishing the lesson, then I brought in one of my mini tour guys that's been on the podcast. Shout out to Austin Morrison. And I said, you might learn something, or just get, not so much learn something, but just get a perspective of sort of an outside observer looking into what he thinks about, and how he basically processes the information that we've talked about. So I had him do a putt, and I said, tell me what you think about, and this could be this, and I think I even talked about, you guys were probably the complete opposite, right? Because you're very, you're probably more right-brained, very, very feel guy, right. And he's on the other side of the spectrum of, he's very analytical and likes to have the information to sort of calm his mind down.
Sure. So
talk about what you thought about when he went through his scenario of how he thinks about putting.
Oh man. Yeah, it was impressive, to say the least. I think where I'm going to try to connect some dots for the listeners would be, for those of you that have listened to the podcast in the past, we've talked about how much the game has changed on the teaching side for the young instructors. Instructors coming in the teaching game at 23, at 24, at 25, at 26, those ages. They're not coming in on the first floor anymore. They're coming in on the 5th floor, on the 6th floor of let's say a 20-story, building, and they're armed with some really great information, and they're able to come in, help people, give probably less bad lessons than we certainly did when we were coming into teaching, and they're just better at what they do earlier on in their career, and that's just a fact. That's just the way it's going for those younger instructors that actually care about their craft and what they do every day. They're just better than you were when you were 25 years old and 26 years old. There's just no question. And watching this, listening to this, you know, of course, because I'm an old geezer now, but listening to this kid give me a dissertation on how a putt leaves his putter head and rolls through these zones and breaks like this, and he does this like this, and he does that like that. And I'm sitting there going, dude, when I was freaking your age and I was out on when I was trying to play for a living and having some success, that I wasn't doing any of that. I mean, I wasn't doing anything even remotely close to the level of sophistication, I guess I would say, that he's bringing to the table. Far supersedes anything I was doing. And for that matter, because I was a pretty inquisitive kid, even some of the good players I was around that I picked their brain, they weren't doing that either. We weren't talking about aim points and drop zones and and, you know, stepping on your line and seeing which foot it's got this and that and all kind of intention and all kinds of crap. Like, we weren't doing any of that. We were just looking at this putt and then trying to have some sort of superhuman recall ability to say, okay, I've seen this putt before. I was in Mississippi 2 weeks ago and I had an uphill putt, you know, that broke 2 feet and it was into the grain. It was slower and shit. And I got to hit it like this, you know, whatever this arbitrary recall is that you were trying to perform. But there wasn't any like thing going on that I was practicing this way so that I could perform a certain way. You know, it was just like, it was almost left to the gods of putting that, like, if you were blessed with putting well that day, you were blessed with putting well that day. And then,
right.
And in our life, it was like Tiger wasn't human. He was a freak, right? Like, nobody putts like Tiger, right? And then everybody else, you know, has a couple of good putting days a month. And you better hope that those putting days come at Q School or come at a Monday qualifier when you're trying to get in a tournament, because that's when you need it to show up, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't anything systematic that we were taking to the course with us every day. You know what I mean? That it was almost even classified as like you were like a Ben Crenshaw or you were like a Johnny Miller. You know what I mean? Like, you were either born as a great putter and you just putted great and people told you were great, so you thought you were great. Mm-hmm. But you really weren't great. You were just had good touch, probably.
Or good ball location.
Yeah. You know?
We can get to the Lee Westwood story later.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what my thoughts on average putters that have great putting days is they get lucky with ball location. Like, they get a lot of putts that are uphill like 30 degrees.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not above the hole very, very often that day to where they got to putt defensively.
Sure. And then you just don't get, you know, as a player, especially as a young player, you don't statistically qualify your proximity to the hole and where you were putting from.
Yeah.
You know, you just thought that day you rolled it good. And then you're searching for that magic wand where you can, you know, roll it good again, you know, another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you went and looked at the stats, the chances are that the reason you putted good is because you were putting from the most makeable location on the pin placement, right, for that day. You just didn't know you were on the close to the zero line or on a right edge, left edge, uphill putt, right? So yeah, that's just it was very impressive to listen to a kid of his age be that articulate and be that sophisticated with what his systems are and how he approaches practice and how he approaches putting in a tournament and how they overlay in such a way that he doesn't feel like he's doing anything different, you know, ever.
Yeah.
Whereas I certainly felt the heat at different times in my career because I wasn't loyal to very many things. I definitely knew the moment was on top of me when it was on top of me. I wasn't locked into a routine or a system that was just kind of allowing me to go autopilot and do things that, you know, were more reactionary. I was going like, holy shit, I have to make this putt right now. You know what I mean? Or oh God, if you don't make this, you know, you're going, you know, you're going to ruin this round, or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
stuff that seems so remedial for good players now, but back in the day when you didn't have all these coaching tactics and these teaching tactics, you were just kind of there, you know, you just were dealing with stuff like that in your head, you know, you just were.
And we're not, and to kind of clarify, like, I'm not saying everybody needs to be as thorough as Austin, because
Sure.
they don't. Like, it was just and I thought it would be, eye-opening for you to see sort of the other side of the spectrum
Right.
of somebody that's like super detail oriented with a very, very high golf IQ. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your list is going to be, or your boxes are going to be much less,
Right.
but the fact is you needed to have some boxes.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, you need to have like a small little checklist of, whether it's like intention, drop zone, breathe, go. You know what I mean? Like, that's something simple like that.
Yep.
To kind of figure out like what works for you. But he in his world, in the way he processes it, like, the more boxes he can check, the more calm he gets when he gets ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah, he's a little more Bryson.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's
a little
like
more
Bryson. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like the more things that he knows that are okay, the calmer he gets and the better he putts.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the other side of the deal.
Yeah. And then when, just for the listeners out there, as he was walking through his, approach to putting, he was putting about a 15-foot, 12 or 15-foot putt uphill that broke about a foot and a half. And he went through his system, and, the first putt he hit, like, he hit it a little too hard, hit it right above the top lip. And right when he hit it, it was like halfway there, and he had already knew he hit it too hard.
Yeah.
And
The awareness is pretty off the charts, right?
He had labeled that, right? And it was only halfway there.
Yeah.
And he had already labeled it. And then when it kind of burned the top edge and went about 2 feet by instead of 1 foot by, the very next putt he hit, he burned the low edge, and then he made the third one.
Yeah.
But like every one of those putts, for 85% of the putt, looked like it was going in.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like he was off the map on any of them, So a lot of times I've been, I call them posers. I mean, but I've been around dudes that like are talking smack like they know what they're about to do, but then like when it really comes time to pull the trigger, they don't do it. But like he was all over the hole, and it wasn't like a little rinky-dink putt. I mean, this putt, if you mishit it or heeled it or pulled it a little bit, it was going to make you look stupid. I mean, it was going to snap off the world if you mishit it. So I thought that was pretty impressive that he was able to do that.
Yeah, and
especially when you're being judged, even if it's
right. Bad. Yeah, he's basically on stage, and I asked him to like take him through his deal, and then I shared with you, and then talked a little bit about how we sort of judge each putt, because I want my players to have an awareness of like what happened, right? So every putt, I want them to tell themselves, was it a start line, was it a read problem, or was it speed? Right? So it's one of those three things, and he can pretty much nail, all of those three things very, very accurately. That way you don't start going down a rabbit hole that you don't need to go down, which is usually like a stroke problem or whatever. So it increases the hope factor. Right, as we talked about, like the hope factor has to be high throughout a round. I think it's very, very important.
Yeah, definitely. I can only imagine I can only imagine what he would be experiencing on the course, which is, I could be wrong, but what I'm thinking a guy like him would experience is that when he putts great, there's all these reasons why he's putting good, and he's not surprised by it. And when he's off, he's not off by very much, which is another really big thing. And when he is off, there's a direct troubleshoot that has him having the ability to make corrections extremely fast. And to me, that's like the holy grail of what's going on in the competitive world of golf. If you are a competitive player, or you're teaching a competitive player, then having their bad days become mediocre to good days, and their good days become great days, and then anything that's mediocre is able to be fixed fast, even in the midst of competition, to save a round or save a 9 holes so they don't lose ground in the tournament. That's the holy grail. I mean, that's when the coach is worth everything, and the information's worth everything, and the relationship of the coach and the player is unbreakable.
Yeah, and that's where like we talked about the feedback, getting the accurate feedback on every putt, I think is crucial, right? Because we're just sort of filing all those things into the database, our brain, the computer, to recall under those pressure situations. In my opinion, I think great putters are very observant. They're aware of what's happening. They're aware of the outcomes and why.
Yep.
And then they're able to, like you said, adjust on the fly. And I think that's why, Austin's slowly, he wasn't a great putter when we started, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not to toot my own horn, but we've developed this sort of process over time. It's been 2 years.
Right.
To sort of develop it.
Let me toot it for you.
Yeah.
Beep, beep. The other thing I think is, and I don't know if, and this is like, I'm catching you off guard now because it's probably one of my questions to ask the guru, but
yeah, shoot.
I have problems with a lot of my students, especially my students that are trying to become scratch golfers have this issue. And then my mini tour players and really good college players have this issue, is that they don't have the ability to remove the result of what it's for. And they putt, like my good players putt eagle putts and birdie putts differently than they putt par putts and bogey putts.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I scratch my head going, dude, what? Like, why? Like, why do you do that? And they're like, dude, it's just different. And I'm like, why is it different? And it just is. So it is a thing.
Yeah,
no matter what we say, it's a thing.
No, I get it.
And I guess because I'm, this salty has been / never was, I had to figure out how to putt. Yeah, because when you were 6 under, you had to figure out how to be 8 under. Yeah. And when you were 2 over, you had to figure out how to be even. So when you're out there competing and playing, that you can't make every putt become the Super Bowl. And you just have to roll a ball on grass because it's what you do every day of your life. And for my kids and my college kids and my high school kids, it's definitely a problem. They definitely tried. They'll read it from 3 different angles instead of 1 if it's for eagle. And then they'll like take extra practice strokes, and then they'll try to make, and I'm doing air quotes. They'll try to like make a good stroke, right? So that it gives it the best chance of going in, when they probably should have just walked up, did what they always do, and then put it like it's for bogey, and they would have made it. Like put it like they don't give a shit, and it would have gone in. Kind of like, and this is the reference. The story I tell them is the 63. I don't want to misquote. It's either 63 or 62. It might have been 62. The one that Justin Thomas made at Erin Hills on the last day, or on the 3rd round, when he stacked that 3-wood on that par 5, and he had that like 4.5 footer for eagle, but the dude he was playing with was playing hockey sticks across the green and was like taking forever. Yeah. And he just like sat on his bag, he turned his staff bag on the ground, and then like sat on it while the dude was like finishing out. And the guy actually wanted to finish out to kind of give Justin the stage, you know what I mean, to finish.
Yeah.
And then when it was Justin's turn to putt, to me it almost seemed like he didn't take. I mean, dude, that putt was off his putter face from the minute he put the ball down. It wasn't more than 10 seconds, and the ball was in the hole for eagle. And he broke Miller's record. Either tied it or broke it. I don't remember. It's not important. What's important was there was a stage, there was a moment in which he could have failed, and he overcame that moment and putted that putt. You would have thought he was putting out for bogey because he was pissed and he missed the cut. Yeah. Like, that's literally what he looked like putting this putt. Like, it didn't look like it was to break the U.S. Open record, right, or tie the U.S. Open record. So I tell the kids all the time, like, go on YouTube and go, because that he's wearing pink pants and a white shirt, and he smokes this 3-wood, right, and the pin's like on the left side, and he hits this like unbelievable cut shot from like 270, and he like, that's when they were just eating that course up. I don't know if you remember those. The one Koepka one, but he stacks this 3-wood to like 5 feet, and he was already on fire tearing the course up, and he just walks up like it was no big deal and just hearts it right in the middle. And I'm just going, dude, that was baller right there.
Yeah. So my advice is, and we talked a little bit about today when we were with Austin, is get in the habit of forgetting about the hole. Right. So it's like getting lost in the process. I mean, it's so easy to say, I get it. But the more you can kind of create that mindset of what the putt looks like, where you want to stop the ball, where the ball needs to start, where the drop point is, whatever your visual is, and let the hole get in the way. Like, that's the best way to like kind of get out of your own way.
Right.
Right. I mean, you can go old school and talk about, Brad Faxon, one of the greatest putters ever.
Yep.
They ask him, what do you think about when you got a 3 or 4 footer to win a tournament or it's a big moment? And he says, I just don't try as much, right? Or like I try less, or I do less.
Yeah.
It's almost it's a mind game, right?
Right.
So, again, it's treating that putt the same. Easy to say, I get it, but until you have that awareness, like, you don't really know that you need to change that mindset. Yep. You're going to treat a eagle putt differently than a bogey putt. But
totally.
Until you get lost in the fact that they're all the same value,
yeah,
right?
They're all the same value.
Yeah. So I love, we talked a little bit about it today, is practicing your capture speed to like a ghost hole or a old hole plug.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Take the hole out of play.
Right.
Like, just treat the putt for what it is. You're just rolling a golf ball on the ground and trying to stop it somewhere. And if that happens, that means you've solved all the problems.
Yep.
You've got start line, you've got clown's mouth, you've got drop point, you've got intention. Right? So whatever that is.
God, that sounds so easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I mean, why doesn't everybody just be a great putter? What's the problem?
Right. But again, okay, so then that leads us into the last part of our lesson today, right? So we got the picture stuff, you sort of got it, you had the aha moment, you're like, wow, this is different. We started hitting some putts, and some putts actually started finishing by the hole.
Right.
Behind the hole, rather your misses were, the hope factor went way up.
Right.
Because the ones that finish short and low, the hope factor is very, very slim. Right? You're a good player. You hit it halfway there, it's not going in.
Right.
So we started getting that way up, and they're like, all right, well, what's going on? So we sort of dial it back and go, okay, now let's dig into the mechanics of what's happening with the putter, right? We go back to the SAM report, and we go back to, like, I shot a bunch of video and discovered that I knew you were, like I said, just a little bit of a right aimer with a face that was opening 8 degrees on the backstroke. Putter was moving maybe a little straighter back than I was comfortable with. And you would leave the face open at impact. So your start direction was always to the right. Mm-hmm. So talk about what we changed to fix that.
So I had switched to the claw about... Well, it's probably right when I was here for that Scott Cowks deal. I had just switched because I was just so fed up with my hands not feeling right on the putter. You know what I mean? It's always felt like these different pressure points, and just smashing my hands up on the putter a certain way just never really felt right. And then I felt like when I putted crossy, I felt like even more blocky than I do, normally. Mm-hmm. So when I went to the claw, I actually thought I was supposed to sort of position my right arm in a way that kind of internally rotated my shoulder and my forearm to get my hand to kind of sit like in a perfect position, like in line with the shaft. And that was kind of routing. I was kind of not allowing the putter to work to the inside because my elbow position was a little bit floating out into space. So we started raking my elbow back in towards my right hip, mm-hmm. and still doing the claw, but then by sort of externally rotating my elbow and my forearm, I was able to sort of start tracing the putter more in. And then that just sort of also opened up doors for me from that place to close it,
Right.
And
Instinctively, right? Like
right.
Yeah. So
I wasn't holding on down the line anymore.
Right. Yeah, that was the cool thing is like when you pick the right piece to the puzzle, like to fix, a lot of times it works out that way because you could have easily blocked it more because we were adding a bit more arc.
Right.
But what it did was actually stabilize the face a little more, and you actually rotated it less, which to my surprise was great.
Right.
And then the putter squared up nicely, and the ball started on line. So we used the Vizio mat, a lot, and just sort of start line drills. But it was, again, what I view as an easy fix a lot of times isn't as easy to the student.
Yep.
How did you feel about that change with it?
It felt pretty easy.
Yeah.
I was actually, again, I was actually trying to keep my arm in that position on purpose.
Yeah.
So and it felt a little more robotic to have my arm my elbow sort of pushed out in that way and my hand on the grip a certain way. I was just misinterpreting that we talked about Fleetwood and how underneath, even though he's he's like gnarly underneath the shaft. And so you weren't asking me to go underneath, but you were just letting me know that even that aspect of the technique is available to a player if they want it. So I was the opposite of Fleetwood. So I was floating my elbow up above the shaft, which was routing my stroke in a weird way. And you said, you could go Fleetwood and that would change things dramatically, but I don't need you to go there. I just need you to go, halfway in between. Mm-hmm. And it felt more natural to have my arm in that position anyway. So it wasn't a super big.
That's good when it works out that way. So basically it was separating the wrist joint from the forearm, where you can move your forearm without actually moving your wrist joint,
right?
Your hand position too much, and it just got, like the way I would describe it, it got the forearm more behind the shaft.
Yep.
To where, quote unquote, air quotes, on plane, right? I mean, not that that's really a thing, but it just it made it simpler for you to actually make the stroke we were looking for.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that just kind of tied it all together. And then you gave me some, now I had the stroke and the technique. Yep. You gave me, a little thing about my lower body, the pelvis, and making some room.
Yeah, so we just got we just straightened your legs a touch, which got your pressure points a little more in your arches. Quieted the excess movement of the lower body a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then you were good to go.
Yeah, and then that was sort of what kind of wrapped it all together on the technical side, mixed with the imagery and the intention, and then we wrapped it up with, here are some drills you can do, and here's some different workstations you can do with your kids and with yourself, know, to make sure these mechanics kind of take hold and these different things become a part of how you putt every day.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, let's dig into some of the stories that we talked about maybe in the last couple of days. Like I said, I learned a lot more about you this weekend. It's amazing. Like you're still a young guy, but you've had so many great experiences with great players and great teachers. And we were talking at dinner the other night because I just had Dana Dahlquist on the show,
right? And
we were talking about Mac. Right, Mac OGrady,
right,
and then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, I've let me tell you about my story when I met Mac.
You're right,
and I was like, what? So talk. There was three. Was there 3 episodes?
Yeah, those 3. I mean, one of them is just sad.
Yeah,
one of them is just a really sad story.
That's right. But just share with us
2
about
of them
that.
are just awesome. They're so Mac, they're so Mac. Notorious, Mac-esque stories, but
what?
I'm gonna take a piss.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah. That's cool.
Get into that
no, that's cool.
And then we'll get going.
Yeah. All right,
we're there.
We're back. Yep.
All right.
Yeah. So give us the Mac story. Let's hear what's up.
Let's see. Set the stage. So it's It's maybe 2001, maybe 2001, 2002. I've kind of worked my way into the Tour Pro side of the TaylorMade company, and for those of you that don't know, like usually the new product line is always sort of debuted at the PGA show, which is at the beginning of the year, and it's between the PGA show and like March 1st that you get your day at the tour department to get your stuff for the year, all the stuff you're going to play, right? So, and for guys that were playing full time, they would have your specs on file. They would even, for a lot of times, build like if you weren't playing on a tour that had the tour van there, you'd have identical replicas of every club that they could send out to whatever state you're in, whatever hotel you're in, whatever country you're in, right? So I get my day, and usually it's either 2 or 3 tour pros at a time are getting fitted on the same day. So when you show up, you go into the little break room, and they've got your name up there, and and they're like, you get assigned your fitter and everything, and it turns out that my day is the same day as Mac and Kenny Perry. So it's me, Mac, and Kenny Perry, right?
Decent group.
Yeah. And Kenny Perry comes in first in the little break room, and they got all the little snacks there that you can eat and stuff, and he's like, walks up, country boy, super nice, shakes my hand, and we start rapping a little bit, and he's friends with Blackmar and all this stuff, so we started talking about that stuff, and always, usually in the tour pro world, it's like 2 or 3 degrees of separation, and you kind of know everybody, on some level. And Mac's not anywhere to be seen, right? So there's no Mac sighting as of yet. Well, it turns out he's been on the damn, tour driving range, just like straight striping 6 irons, for like an hour, right? And it's like pretty much telling everybody how to do their job, up at the tour department. So we get up there, and then, they're already kind of warning me, and I have heard of Mac. And the thing that I recognized, or that I knew about Mac historically, was that this is this guy that attempted to petition the USGA to play in the US Open left and right-handed, right? So he wanted to play a morning round lefty and an afternoon round righty if he could qualify, and he was like kind of inferring that it would be discrimination if he wasn't allowed to play in the qualifier twice, so that he could play twice, once right-handed and then switch and play left-handed, right?
Sure.
Because this is when he was trying to prove, I think this is, he's just trying to prove, and I mean, this whole USJ thing was way before 2002, obviously.
Right.
But that was just my connection to Mac OGrady, right? I didn't know he was a great instructor. I didn't know he was kind of the godfather. I didn't know anything about Morad. I didn't know any of this crap, right? So I just knew that this dude was notoriously a little bit, off kilter, and that you had to kind of be careful because he could snap at you a little bit, So my fitter is kind of like telling me, like, dude, just don't make eye contact. Let's just stay in your lane, dude.
Don't
like,
look at him.
don't even go there, dude. Because if you invite this, shitstorm over here, it's gonna get out of hand, right? And so and Mac was pretty strategic in who he knew when someone was in search mode. Because obviously Kenny Perry's had the same exact swing for forever, right?
Yeah.
So it's like he picks it up, drops it in, hits these push draws for days, right? And with Kenny's clubs, they would actually hot melt all of his woods. They'd put like something ridiculous. I want to say it was like 15 or 20 grams of hot melt would go into the toe of his clubs, and they would cook all of his woods upside down. So they would put them in this oven, and they would cook the hot melt into his wood, so that all this, they would try to move as much of the CG they could towards the toe. So like instead of hitting a 30-yard hook, he'd hit a 10-yard draw, right? Like that was how they basically just built the clubs around, a 15-degree rightward swing direction.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Makes
And
sense.
so they would, and now, because this is way before they had movable weights and all this other stuff. So they would just squirt the hot melt into the toe, and then they did it for Tom Lehman and all these guys that played big draws. They would turn the draw into like a 5-yard draw, instead of a 25-yard draw, right? So it was actually kind of cool stuff that they would do. So I'm there hitting balls, and this is in my mind, right? So we're still Tigers coming out, right? And this is Tiger and Butch early days. So we've got the wide takeaway with the 3/4. You got the left sleeve rolled up, nar to show off the gun show, right? and then you're going yak nasty on everything, right? So you're going full turbo boost, right? Like everything you can do to hit 7-iron 200 with a Titleist professional golf ball that's like a marshmallow, right?
Right.
So you are going. I probably was swinging 7-iron, I don't know, somewhere shy of 100, right? Like I was probably around 97 or 100, and I was just wide and short and hooded and just tilting back and just going buck wild like a freak show. I mean, looking back, if I could just go like, what are you doing, you idiot? You know, it's like looking back on my swing, but I had Tiger's swing in my head, you know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, this is the swing, right? I mean, this swing just won the Masters by all these strokes, and it's taking over the tour, and you know, he's just the man, right? So you got to be like Tiger, right? You know, I mean, that was just the thing. And so I'm hitting balls, and this is at the time where they had these 6-iron carts that had all these different plug holes in them, and they were like little wheelbarrow carts. They look like the trash cans they look like the waste management trash cans you're going to wheel out to the front of your street, and that get picked up every morning. And so it's like this wheelbarrow, and imagine it being like a refrigerator, kind of like cut in half. It's like that big, right? So it's like 4 foot by 4 foot.
Old fitting cart,
right? Yeah. With wheels on it.
Yep.
So I've got my stuff going on, right? And I guess Mac thought it was time to eat his sandwich, which he brought with him. It had like all these Nutri-Grains, and like it had like what is that shit that Jesper Parnevik was eating? It was like lava, right? So he would, no bullshit, right? So he was sprinkling like lava like pepper, like salt and pepper. He was putting lava rocks on his turkey and avocado sandwich with this like certain brand of bread that he says he like grew at his house, and I don't know, dude, it was weird. And he starts like wanting me to like look at the sandwich, and he's like, now he's up in my space, and now my fitter is like looking down at the ground going, oh god, this is gonna get ugly. And so now the dude's like saying, so who are you? And I'm like, my name's Chris Trevino. And he's like, oh, Trevino. He's like, your Lee's kid? And I was like,
another one.
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm not. No, Lee's. He goes, he's the best. He's the best there ever was. The best striker of the ball there ever was. And I'm like, okay, great. Here we go. So like he starts going into this, you know, Lee Trevino stories and whatnot. And so I look back at my fitter, and my fitter's like telling me like, keep hitting, and he'll leave, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep hitting, right? Because I'm low on the totem pole here. I'm just trying to, you know, have my day. And I'm just honored to be on the range with, you know, Kenny Perry. And you know, even if it's this Fruit Loop, I'm still honored to be on the range with him, you know. So I'm just hitting balls, and I start going into my, you know, I'm going to show this freaking weirdo how to really hit a ball. You know, this is how you do it, right?
Full nuke.
What you do is you take it back as wide as you can, and you laterally slide to your right foot as far as you can. And then you get just enough pressure so you don't drop kick it into your left foot, and you go full turbo boost to the point where you can't take a divot because you're so tall through the ball, and you're just face pulling and picking these balls, and they're just going straight up in the clouds. I must have looked like the biggest idiot of all time. And so Mac is eating this sandwich, and now he's decided to, in the middle of my waggles and my setup, he's now walked in front of me, like to where if I pull the trigger, I'm gonna rip his face off with this golf ball if I pull the trigger, right? So he's looking at me, and he's like kind of sizing me up with the sandwich, and he's chomping on this sandwich as he's like analyzing my setup, and he's kind of asking, he says, what are you doing? And I went, hitting the ball. He goes, I don't know if I would call it that. He goes, why do you do that? And I go, why do I do what? And he says, why are you hitting the ball like this? And I go, this is how you hit the ball. And he says, I beg to differ. He says, go ahead and set up. And I'm like, fuck. And now my fitter's like, okay, I'm out of here. I've had it. Now it's done. You know, this is it. So he says, set up. And so I set up to the ball. And he says, let me have the club. So I give him the club. He takes the club and he puts the butt of the grip on the outer edge of my right foot. And he extends the club parallel backwards, kind of like an extension of the target line, right? Then he takes this wheelbarrow cart with all these irons in it, and he meshes up the cart to the edge of the 7-iron, right? To where the 7-iron's at. So now he's giving me kind of like he's blocking me, right?
Yeah.
So he's creating
you
this
take it back
wall.
too wide, you can't. You'll hit
exactly,
it,
right? So he kind of gives me the radius, is what I end up finding out later, right? A fancy word, right, for me, right? And so he says, all right, here you go. He goes, now hit the ball. So I'm like, okay, well, no biggie, right? So I donk. I go, donk. Take it back one more. Like, so now I actually tried to hinge my wrist on this one a little bit so I wouldn't hit it, and I still donked it. Right? So I went donk. And I was like, I can't hit the ball with this fucking cart here, bro. And he raises his finger. He goes, aha. He goes, therein lies the answer. Figure that out, and you'll get it. And he walks away. Right?
Left you with that.
Left me with that, right? That was in the middle of my fitting, right?
Oh, my gosh.
So what if I would have had, let's say I would have had one of you guys come out of a time machine from the future, right? From 2018 or even probably 2010, probably when some MORAD and all this stuff was full bore going, right?
Right.
Is he was wanting centered pivot, right? Like he was saying there's no, it's not necessarily stack and tilt, but it's like, dude, you got to chill, bro. Like you're so far on he was trying to help me, but in this really weird, I'm not going to give you the answers because you're going to have to dig it out of the dirt, and find it.
Yeah.
But he was being a weirdo, which is fine, but he was also trying to help me, and he just, at that time I had no idea what he was trying to do with me. But now that I teach golf and now that I've studied MORAD and I've been around other guys that, have been influenced by Mac and I don't want to, Mac, a lot of us owe a debt of gratitude to Mac. I mean,
absolutely.
What he did to be able to put all of this stuff into a language that allows us to talk to each other, and the P1s through even Doc does the P13 or whatever, where you cross it over and toss it to the caddy, right? It's like everything, right? Neck tilts and sexiness and all that good shit. But we all owe Mac a debt of gratitude, I think, to a certain degree. But coming up, he was just kind of he was a strange cat, and if you didn't know him and you weren't on the inner circle, you'd be like, this guy's a total weirdo, right?
Yeah.
So he was trying to get me to be centered, load my wrist faster so that I could be more on top of the ball and actually compress it instead of picking it and launching it up into, the clouds like I was. And I just didn't know I just didn't know that was desired at that time, even though it sounds so ridiculous, because you would think anybody playing for a living you would think compressing the ball is like, a number one kind of thing with an iron. But at that time, what I was going through trying to visualize the 97 Tiger swing, I had no chance of being able to do what he was asking me to do, because it would have felt literally to me like I was falling into the driving range, like I was falling forward to be able to create that swing.
Yeah.
So I couldn't have done it.
Did you ever get to play with Mac?
Oh, dude, Jesus. So here comes the good story. This is the sad story, right? So here's the sad one.
Yeah.
So farmers, right? So Southern California. So Mac was, I don't know where. I know Mac has a residence in Palm Springs and had a residence in Palm Springs for a very long time. I couldn't tell you where he lives now. I don't know, but I know he worked with a really big Asian clientele out of Palm Springs. He was there for a very long time. So he would come down and he would try to Monday for a lot of the West Coast stuff.
Is this the range story, or we're going to go to the playing story?
No, this is the playing one.
Okay, you'll go playing, then we'll go to the range story.
Yeah, because this happened in this order.
Yeah, perfect.
Right, because that's why he knew me. He knew me because we had played.
Gotcha. Okay.
So he remembered me because when I introduced, so basically this story is
Makes
the
sense.
Monday qualifier for the farmers for Torrey. We get paired together again, as just fate would have it. My life, all these weird people I get paired with, and I get paired with Mac, right? And then we're playing with some chopper, right? Like I don't remember who the other guy was. And Mac's 4 under through 6, right? He's like 400 through 6.
Carrying his own bag, by the way.
Carrying a Jones bag, no kickstand, in the wet, in the wet, dewy February, like morning, right? And we get, and I think I'm whatever. I'm like even or 1 under, and he's, he's rapping with me a little bit, but not only in the sense that he remembers me from, from the TaylorMade, fitting, and and he had heard, because Mac was still playing on like the Golden State tour, you know what I mean? Like anything, he was still.
He's trying to get
at this point. He was, Champions Tour was a thing, and he wanted to compete, and he was still trying to play some golf, you know what I mean? And he was still pretty good. So I might have been like whatever fifth or third on the money list for Golden State Tour, which was just kind of the, who's the tallest midget and on the West Coast for for professional golfers kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, he kind of, having a pretty good year, huh? Making some money, huh? Playing some good golf. He was doing that kind of bullshit with his fucking, his 1986, like, tour visor shit that he had on, right? And so he's playing lefty and he's putting righty in this case, right? So he's playing lefty. And he's 400 through 6, right? And he gets on 7, and he kind of necks this little fade out there and doesn't go anywhere, right? I mean, this is like SoCal. It's like 50 degrees, wet fairways, right? So like it didn't go far, right? And so he's got a good 170 and 160, and so I can't tell if he's hitting 6 iron to 7 iron. And he tops it, right? Like he cold rolls it in the middle of the fairway, like rolls it. I'm talking like
worm burner.
Yeah, held the follow through, rooster tail, do topper.
Oh god!
Right, with the hold follow through. Didn't drop it and twirl it like he normally does.
Yeah,
but just held it in kind of disbelief that I just topped a ball, kind of like thing. Puts the club back in the bag. It's got the Jones bag on the right shoulder. Walking, and he hasn't got to my drive yet. So he hit the drive, then he topped it, and he's not even to my ball yet, right? And he takes the club out of his bag, and almost like a polo match, as if he was riding on a horse, he just keeps walking, and he whacks the ball with his left hand while he's walking. And he kind of gets it half airborne, and it goes about 70 yards and hits it 10 yards short of the green. And no one knows what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the rest of the group doing?
I'm like, is that a violation? I mean, do you need to play another ball, or do I need to call a rules official? I'm a little bit caught off guard right now. I'm not really sure what to do. I'm just going to hit my ball right now and just see how this hole plays out, because I'm pretty sure, I don't know if that's considered a real stroke or not, because the ball wasn't moving, so but he was moving. Yeah. And he was hit it one-handed, but from the side. I didn't know, right? Because nobody really knew what the hell was going on, right?
Yeah.
And it's so Mac-esque. It's almost like he knew what he was doing and nobody else knew. So I kind of hit it on the green. I don't remember 30 feet. Well, he doesn't wait. So the other guy hits it in the bunker. Well, he's walking almost he almost walked in front of me while I was hitting. Right? So he's up by the green. And as I'm walking from my ball, right, he already chips it on. And he putts out with the pin in, which at the time, you're not supposed to have the pin.
It's not a thing. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So we got all kinds of rules infractions going on. There's just a lot of shit going on right now, right? And I'm going, Jesus, man, I don't want to be the guy that's stroking Mac OGrady as he's 4 under. He's on fucking career watch right now. Dude, come on, dude. Why are you putting me in this? Because the other dude wasn't going to say shit.
Yeah.
Right? The other dude was
he's in shock.
Yeah, he's already 6 over through 6, right? He's just happy to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm just going I think I might even have had Mac's card. I'm going, this isn't good, dude. I don't know what to do. Right? Well, I didn't have to do anything, because after he putts the ball in with his wedge and rams it against the pin and stuffs it down into the hole, he picks the ball up and walks off the golf course.
Oh my gosh.
And left.
Just WDs.
Just left the property.
See ya.
Gone. See ya. So half of me was thank God, because I didn't even know what to give him on that hole. Do I give you a 8 and call it a day? I didn't know what to do. So yeah, it was an interesting thing, and that was my second Mac.
That was 2.
That was Mac part 2.
Yeah. Part 3.
Mac Part 3 is Long Beach Open. So on the West Coast, for those of you listeners out there, the Long Beach Open is a long-standing tournament. It used to be called the Queen Mary. Fred Couples, a little history. Fred Couples, as an amateur, entered the Queen Mary like in 78 or 80, right? Somewhere in there, as an amateur, right? Won it, and then they gave him the choice whether or not to turn pro or not.
Oh, that was the tournament.
Remember what he said on
Yeah,
Faraday?
yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah. Yep.
And he decided to turn pro.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and he's
took
like,
the money.
Yeah, he's like, give me the cash. Right? And it was like dog shit. It was like $6,000 or something.
Yeah, he's
right?
he's like a junior at Houston or whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
So he won the Queen Mary, and the Queen Mary
I did not know that.
became the Long Beach Open.
Okay.
So it's a very, very long-standing tournament. Lots of, Johnny Miller's won it, Marco Mira's won it, Fred Couples won it. I mean, there's a lot of great players that have won this tournament. So if you don't have status, and even there was some guys like Kevin Na played in this tournament and won this tournament, right? So as a high school player, right? So
really?
A lot of people don't know Kevin Na never went to college. So Kevin
he didn't.
Kevin Na GED'd out of high school. No bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Just said, I don't want to be in high school anymore.
Yeah.
What do I got to do? You got to take a test. Okay, give me the test. Right? So he was 16 and a half, 17 years old the year that I played with Kevin Na in Long Beach Open. And he shot like 18 under par or some bullshit and won the Long Beach Open. Right? And that was kind of catapulted his, deal going that way. So winning this tournament kind of, for a lot of players, had like some good springboard, effect. So I shoot 65, 66, and I'm leading. Right? Long Beach Open. Mac comes down, right, to play in it, and usually brings a lot of his better Asian clientele that have come over that are trying to either get on the Asian tour or get on the PGA tour or, get on the European tour. So he's got 15 of his little Asian, zombies that are all doing whatever the hell he's telling them to do, right? So this is when Adams came out with this new hybrid club that was kind of taking the tour by storm, and it was this sort of, they called it the Peanut, and it was this sort of deep-faced hybrid that and it was just hot. I mean, this thing was just going. Like, I could hit this hybrid 270 off the ground. I mean, it was stupid. It had no bearing in my bag whatsoever, but it was so awesome to hit. I was just I'm taking it. It was it went as far as my 3 would, and it was supposed to replace my 3 iron, right? It was a joke, right? But I could just nuke this thing out of any lie, and I got it off the tour van, and it was just this. That's when Adams and TaylorMade were partners.
Oh yeah.
So they were a dual company, right? So and the R&D guys at Adams were pretty innovative. So they were coming out with some really cool stuff at that time. And so I had this hybrid, and I'm bombing it, right? And I'm kind of I'm leading this tournament. There's 400 dudes in the field. So it's I'm peacocking. I mean, I am peacocking. I'm not going to bullshit.
You're feeling good about yourself.
I'm feeling it, dude. I'm feeling myself right now, right? So it's you don't know you. It's you do know me now, bro.
Now
time,
you know me,
right?
bro.
Now you know me, bro. Time, right? So I'm on the range. I'm hitting this thing out of divots. I'm just it sounds like a goddamn cannon's exploding off this club face, right? Every time I make a shot. So here come these Asian guys that are all on the range, going through, freaking zombie school. And they're just they're hearing these shotguns, go out behind them. And, and I had a couple other my homeboys, around me, and we were just shooting the shit. And the range at El Dorado, where Double D, works at,
yep.
It's pretty long. I mean, it's got to be it's got to be every bit of 350. Right, to get to where Dana would be teaching, in the back, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just piping these freaking hybrids, right? And it looks like I'm hitting a driver 300 yards off the ground is what it looks like, right? So here come these Asian guys. They all come over to where I'm at. And it's oh, wow, oh, dang. You long. You hit the ball long. Right? So everyone's just kind of just you can hear them, and then, in that culture, that's they're just impressed with certain things that's not really a part of their culture, right? So you just don't, Hideki bombs the ball, but prior to Hideki, most of the Asian dudes are so technique oriented, they're not power oriented, right?
Right.
So Hideki's a freak show in Asia, you know what I mean? In terms of how far he hits it. So Mac, of course, is now like pissed because like he was doing
Max on the range.
Yeah, Max on the range doing a master class, and here comes this Mexican, right? And now this Mexican's over here rocket launching hybrids. You know what I mean? And with probably the most dog shit technique you could probably have, right? According to Mac, right? Because it's all piecemealed and hand-eye and timing and all this shit that he hates, right?
Yeah.
And here I am just nuking these bombs right all over the place. And Max sort of shuffles his way through the crowd of people that are sort of watching me hit this club. And I look back and he goes, "Oh, Trevino, jeez, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, hey, Mac, what's up?" And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm just hitting balls, man." And he's like, "I can see that. What kind of club are you hitting there?" I was like, "Oh, it's got this hybrid club, it's kind of nice. I'm just piping." He goes, "Well, let's see one." And I was like, I'm feeling it, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, "Watch this, you old motherfucker," right? And I was like, whoosh, fucking rip one, right? And he kind of is giving me the nod, like he's giving me the like not bad, like the not bad nod, right? Not the Sevi, I'm gonna destroy you nod, but he's giving me the like, not bad.
Like you deserve to actually be on the range nod.
Yes, yeah, okay.
You can be on my range.
You're at least worth watching right now, kind of nod, right? So he asked to see the club. And I show it to him, and he's kind of like looking at the head, and he's got it up next to his face, and he's kind of looking at it like from a 360 angle, and it's getting weird already, right? So I'm like, oh fuck, I shouldn't have given him the club. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what he's gonna do. Like he might just walk off with my club, right? And I don't even know what's gonna happen, right? He says, "Mind if I hit one?" And I'm like, "Sure." I'm thinking to myself like, this thing's like got 100-gram X-Flex graphite shaft. I'm like, bitch, you ain't getting this ball in the air with my club, dude. What are you doing, bro? You're old, dog. Like, you don't got it right now. This ain't the thing, right? And so he sets up righty, and he's kind of like got the Mac like neck tilts going, and he's got the waggles going, and it looks like he's about to smoke show this hybrid, right? And it's and I'm thinking this thing's going to come out at about a 5-degree launch angle, and it ain't getting higher than 50 feet, but it's going to be hit solid because he hits it solid, right?
Yeah.
He shakes his head right over the ball, and he goes, "No, I don't think so." He goes, "I'm gonna hit it lefty." And I went, "You're gonna
what?
You're gonna do what?" And he was like, I think it works better lefty." I'm like, "Works better lefty? It's a right-handed club, dog. Like it won't work better lefty. There is no lefty." I'm not kidding. This is a real story. This is real life. I was there. It's my club. You can ask anybody who was on the range that day. He looked back and asked me, "What ball flight do you want?" As he proceeds to set up backwards. He's now hitting my hybrid off the back side of my hybrid. So the opposite sides of the scoring lines. So if you look at the club and you put your finger on the part you hit the ball on, if you were to scroll your finger all the way back to the back side of the club, he's now addressing the ball with the beveled edge of the back side of the rounded hybrid. That's a composite head of metal and graphite. Okay? This is serious. This is not joking.
Yeah.
And he goes, "What kind of shot you want?" I'm like, shit. Draw. And he goes, "Medium or high?" And I went, "You son of a bitch." I was like, "Medium." Right? He doesn't even hesitate, rears back lefty with my club backwards. And I'm not talking like toe hooded down so he's hitting it on the toe of the scoring lines. I'm talking about literally taking a right-handed club and hitting it backwards. Like you'd be hitting it with the cavity of an iron, right? Like you're not hitting it off the toe of an iron.
Yeah.
He takes this beveled edge of this hybrid, and I'm not kidding. He blades it. He picks it so clean, paths it out to left field because he's lefty. He's hitting lefty.
Right.
He probably throws in like a -10 on TrackMan swing direction to left field. Hits this beautiful draw right around the corner, and all the Asian guys go, "Oh, draw! Oh, so beautiful!" Right?
Yeah.
And he's posing. He drops it in the holster with the Mac like tilts.
He didn't like twirl it.
He twirled it lefty backwards without the scoring lines. Puts his kind of hands me back the club, right? And the club doesn't have a mark on it. Not a chunk mark, not like he's hitting range balls, right? Like, and not Pro V1s, right? So we're not on tour, right? He blades it in a way that doesn't even leave a mark on my club, and he hands me back the club, right? And he says to me, he goes, "Hey, there's only one star on this range, bud. Don't forget it. And I went, you son of a bitch.
Drop the mic.
She mic dropped it hard on me, dude. And he goes, there's only one star on this range. Don't forget it.
That is crazy.
Takes all the crew.
Everybody left.
Everyone just dispersed. I was officially not worth watching anymore. It was like, no, he didn't. No, he did not.
Oh my god!
Just take your club and do that. So
that's classic.
That was the Mac, dude. That was the Mac story, man. He was a legend.
That's crazy.
He is a legend, but he could do shit like that. I mean, like the stuff he could do on a driving range, like it's unbelievable. Because even Doherty would tell me some stories about. Like he'd break out like some vintage 1-iron out of his bag, like that was like, I don't know, some Muirfield, McGregor blade 1-iron, like 4 degrees flat, like E0 swing weight, like some stupid, ridiculous, Jack Nicklaus club. Yeah. And he would just start smoking these freaking balls off the driving range, and the whole crowd's going, good God almighty, like, how the hell are you doing that, man? It's like, wow. You're not hitting a, heavenwood. You're hitting freaking 1-iron, So yeah, that was the Max story, man. He put me in my place.
So tell us, because I mean we all have sort of our breaking points in our career.
Yeah.
I know you had one in Q school.
Oh God.
With Mr. Westwood.
Oh,
do you remember that one?
Yeah, I don't want to remember it.
Yeah. So share with listeners that one, because you had a couple of profound moments there with his caddy.
Yeah.
Right. But also I think it's a good example of like mindset, right? So
right.
We've talked a lot about mindset, and we can kind of dig into the actor thing later or whatever. But I mean, it's like, tell us that story and we can dig into that.
Yeah. So let's see. How do I give it some context? Most of us think of, Lee Westwood as, this like heroic Ryder Cupper, amazing, European Tour golfer, which he is, and he's probably, he doesn't want this title, but he's up there for greatest players to never win a major, right.
Yep.
But what a lot of people don't realize is that he had to crawl out of a pretty dark and deep hole in the early 2000s, because he had kind of risen up pretty fast and then literally plummeted off the European Tour, and was, I'm not kidding, I don't want to misquote, but let's just say he was outside the top 1,000 golfers in the world.
Yeah, like what year was this? I remember they talked about this on,
I want to say it was 2000,
on the Golf Channel.
I want to say it was 2003.
Yeah. So he had fallen all the way out of the top whatever.
Yeah, he was not even on the Challenge Tour.
Right.
So he had gone to Ledbetter. He had kind of moved to Florida to sort of rebuild his game. And he was with Ledbetter at Champions Gate and doing this whole like rebuild project, right? And wanted to be on the PGA Tour, was his goal. So because of his accolades, he was exempted from first stage, but they made him go to second stage. So going into the final round of second stage, I got, just the way the numbers paired out, we were both 2 inside the number, with 18 holes to play, and on the front 9. And of course, like, for those of you that don't know, it's like this is like hell on earth, right? Because you're hanging on for dear life, and every dude out there is like triple looking every 3-footer they have, right? And everyone's triple checking every number, and they're like going through their routine, like, to the utmost fullest of the degree. So this is every bit of a 6-hour to 6.5 hour, like, grueling experience. So there's a lot of time to be had. So the first story is, I was talking with one of the epiphanies that I had was, in rapping with, and mind you, I'm carrying my own bag, right? So no caddy,
yeah.
Right? I'm just looping it
Paint
out
the
there.
picture.
Yeah. So I'm straight hoofer boy, like ping hoofer, C-tizzle out there, just do sweeping it, right, with my pants all jacked up, and I am like, just got the bag on the shoulder, and I'm just carrying my own shit. No one's carrying anything for me. The guy that normally works for me couldn't make it that week, and I had so many awkward encounters with caddies that you pull off the street. You just don't really want to spend that kind of time with someone you don't know and try to make small talk because you just don't have anything to say to that person, and you get the wrong guy off the street at the wrong time to carry your bag, and it could be really bad. You know what I mean? Like it's just not good.
It. Yeah.
It's not good if you don't.
It's got to be a big part of the Q school experience.
Yeah, dude. So
it's having a team, right?
Totally, right? So
it may as well be just you.
I would rather
than a bad situation.
Yeah, I would rather live and die with my choices than have some dude off the street who thinks he knows my game like say something at the wrong time. You know?
Right.
So it wasn't like I was trying to be like heroic. I just didn't trust some random dude off the street I was going to pay $500 to possibly say something at the wrong time. So we're both doing our thing. He's not talking much to me, but his caddy's pretty chipper. You know what I mean? An English guy, and was just kind of shooting the shit, nothing big. And we had a lot of time in our hands, so we were just kind of rapping a little bit. And we started talking about putting and how, my take on it is that, some days you putt good and some days you don't putt good, and I had just kind of, I'm sure like many of us listening to the podcast, some of it just the story that we tell ourselves, is that, we just have good days and we have bad days. And he was the first person to bring to light that said, "Nah, mate, you got it all wrong." I'm like, "What do you mean I got it all wrong?" He's like, "That's not how it works." And I'm going, "Yes, that is how it works, fucking limey asshole. Yes, it is." And he's like, "No, that's not how it works." And of course, like, Mexicans and Europeans, we can all talk trash to each other because we're the minority, so we think, right? And he says it's because you putted good because you were putting from the right place on the green. That's why you putted good. And
ties it back into what I said earlier, right?
Yeah,
ball location.
And I'm going, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, go back and look at the days you've putted well, and chances are you were putting the ball in a very makeable location. You probably weren't making 8 putts that were downhill with 2 feet of break.
Yep.
You were making 7 putts that were uphill with 1 inch of break."
There you go.
And I went, "Motherfucker." I was like, "This dude's for real right now. Yeah. Nice work, son." Yeah. Dropping fucking some knowledge on the fairway, right? So I was like, "Okay, I feel you. I was like, it was one of those like, I get it. Like that is, you're probably right. I'm thinking to myself like, and because this was Lee's full-time guy, it was like a guy that actually works for a living doing this against, the best players in the world,
Sure.
So I'm going like, "Oh, dude, no wonder, fucking dumbass Trevino, like, Jesus, that was dumb." You know what I mean? Like, so I totally bought into it, right? So we go around, I'm playing pretty decent. I'm like 2 under, and now I'm like, because everyone's playing a little bit better, so I'm like by being 2 under, I was like still 2 inside the number, right? And we get to 9, and 9's this reachable par 5 with a elevated tee, water and swamps and stuff all over the place, and guys are they're just gagging their guts out on this tee box, right? I mean, they're toe hooking it in the water, and then they're over blocking dead right, and then you got every damn rules official out there trying to make sure they don't take a wrong drop, right? Because I mean, everything's going to be just totally magnified. So there's like 3 groups on the tee, so we're looking at 40 minutes easy before we tee off. And I'm not wanting to watch any of the, just total chaos that's going on in front of me. Like, I can't watch it. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to watch dudes just, careers going down the toilet on one hole because they're just they can't find the fairway, right? So I'm just like I'm like facing the opposite direction, just looking out into like the forest, right? So I don't have to watch this. And so we're kind of removed off the tee, and nobody's talking to anybody. Lee's not playing good, so Lee's like 1 or 2 over, right? So he's not looking good at this point. Like he's probably 2 or 3 outside the number at this point, right? So I'm waxing him, right? And I'm kind of like, dude, I am waxing him. Like, dude,
and this guy.
Oh yeah, I'm like, dude, I am
a Ryder Cupper.
Yeah, I can't wait to just fucking tell people I'm waxing this fucking punk right here, right? And it's like, and his caddy just gave me the pearls, dude. So now it's on, right?
Yeah.
So I overhear on the cell phone like this guy being like really loud, and he had a little bit of a crowd following him because he's a big deal, right? And I couldn't tell if it was like a fan or whatever, but it turns out it's his agent, right? And his agent is negotiating this deal in the middle of Q school when he's outside the number, right? And he's going over. They go, no, late. No, mate. No, not even close. It's $2 million or nothing. Or you can stuff it up your ass. No, we don't want. No, not doing it. No, no. Right? And I'm like looking over, going, is this motherfucker talking about $2 million? I was like, I got like $400 in my checking account right now. Like, what are we talking about right now? Right? And I'm sitting there going,
and you're winning.
And well, I'm not winning Q school, but I'm the low dude in this group. That's for sure, right? And I'm only like 5 groups behind the lead, right? So we're like 5 groups in front of the leaders, right? Yeah. That's another reason why things are bottlenecking, because we're right in that group where everybody matters. You know what I mean? So like everyone's taking like extra time, and everyone's just, you know, half of them are gagging, the other half are you know careering. So I'm kind of like just completely caught off guard, and because I've got all this time to think about this, right, it's affecting me. And he comes up to Lee, and Lee looks at me, he goes, are we in agreement on this? I mean, it's $2 million or nothing, right? And so basically it was like some kind of like, you know, what logo is going to go on his shirt this year, right? Like for the amount of money that they're talking about. And this deal's getting negotiated like right now, right? And so I'm just going like, how can this be happening? Like, why don't I have an agent? What's wrong with me? Like, I don't even have a caddy. Like, and this dude's got a caddy and an agent and a chef and a trainer. And like, wait a minute. Like, if this motherfucker's negotiating $2 million deals and I got $400 in my checking account, something's wrong here. Like, something is not right. I am waxing this dude right now, right? And I'm thinking like, I got this. Like, I got to give me an agent. And then I'm like, well, I don't have an agent. Am I not that good? Am I careering? Like, and then you just start.
Yeah, you start overthinking.
You start doing all this weird stuff, dude.
Chubby Chandler.
Yes,
that's the guy.
Yes,
I just thought we were talking about earlier. Yep. Like I couldn't remember his name.
And
Chubby. Yeah, he's representing a lot of European guys.
I don't know why this hit me so hard, but it just at the absolute worst time in the world. I went from feeling like. Because still, at that moment in Q school, when you're two inside the number, and you don't know if you're 3 or you're 1,
right?
You know what I mean? And you've got this ridiculous hole where people are making 9s and 10s and shit, and you can't even like look in the fairway. Like nothing feels stable. You know, it's not like I'm out there going, "Oh, dude, I've got this." You know, but I'm kind of like was feeling good until I got to this tee box.
Yeah,
right. I was feeling like, dude, I got this. Like I think I can do this. And then I went from in a matter of 40 minutes between what was happening in front of me with the field and what I found myself to be like completely blown away by, that this guy was negotiating these kinds of deals in the middle of this environment when you're not even a factor in the tournament at the moment. I let it totally freak me out. Like I just totally lost it.
What'd you make on the hole?
I made bogey.
Yeah.
So I did get in. I mean, luckily for me, I was long enough where I could hit iron in the fairways. So I didn't have to hit wood. So I could carry iron like 260, right? So I just roasted a 2-iron as hard as I could, and I got it in the fairway, and then I still 3-putted because I didn't have intention, dipshit. But I end up the last 10 holes. So this is why Lee Westwood is Lee Westwood.
Yeah.
And this is why tour players of the highest caliber are what they are, and this is why everybody else wants to be them, is that here's a guy who unequivocally knew where he stood in the tournament. He's not dumb. He knows exactly what's going on, right? He's got the balls to negotiate a deal on the tee box, right? I think he shoots 4 under his last 10 holes, makes it inside the number by a shot, right? I shoot 3 over my last 10 holes, and I miss it by a shot.
Wow.
So he beats me by 2 on the day. We started at the same number. He beats me by 2. He makes it by 1. I miss it by 1. Right? And he goes on. From that moment on, Lee Westwood never looked backwards. Like, he never had to go through this again.
Yeah.
Right? He just slowly started making his charge back to...
Making his rise, yeah.
Being back to the player that he, I'm sure always knew he could be. And that was sort of the fork in my career where I had to really question what the hell's going on. You know what I mean?
Was that your last time you did Q school?
No. I went to 3. I went to 3 more.
Yeah, because how many times did you miss by a shot? 3 times, right? You say?
2 times. 2 times by a shot. 1 other time by 2 shots.
Wow.
And like I told the viewers the last time, it was always that second stage thing. It was, it wasn't. That was the harder one, I think, for a lot of us guys that came close to to making it and didn't make it. Because once you got to finals, you were going to have status somewhere.
Right. You felt like that was easier.
I did, for me.
Yeah,
and
just
maybe
mentally, right?
Yeah, maybe I'm not trying to make an excuse for why I didn't get it. I just honestly think that it's kind of like it's that thing. Like, is it easier to win a major with a 1-stroke lead on 18, right? Or is it easier to get your tour card and shoot 2 under on the back? Like, what is it? You know what I mean? Like which one's harder? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's tough.
I haven't been in any of those situations, right? But I can promise you that at that time, before the economic decline, a lot of money was getting thrown around in professional golf in the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of money, dude. I mean, dude, on some of the events I qualified on nationwide, if you wanted to give up your whole bag, you could make 10 grand for the week before you even teed it up.
Yeah.
Changing
equipment.
Oh yeah, you could change out your whole bag.
Yeah.
They'd pay you X amount for the wedges, X amount for the putter, X amount for the ball, X amount for the woods, X amount for the irons, X amount for the hat, the glove, the shoe. I mean, shit. You could make $10,000 on a Monday qualifier. You didn't even have to tee it up yet, right? So they were throwing around a ton of money at the time, and there was a lot of money to be made before things went sideways in 2008. But that story was a little bit tragic. I mean, it was amazing for Lee because I just have a lot of respect for a guy that was that high up, fell all the way down to where the journeymans were, where we were struggling to to get there, and then rise all the way back up again like a phoenix. Like Gary Vee says, rise up like a phoenix.
Yeah.
I just I'm sure he doesn't remember any of that. I'm sure it's a part of his life he would never want to recall or even
I'm sure
remember again.
He's probably blocking it out at this point.
But yeah, he that moment in time for me was a very kind of weird moment for me because I had never really been in my own head before. Like, I didn't know what that was. I was just kind of like, ignorance is bliss kind of player. And that time I was like, why don't I have a caddy? Why don't I have an agent? Why is he making so much money? Why do I suck ass? Like
all in like a matter of a minute.
Oh, dude,
of life.
It was the worst 40 minutes.
Changed everything.
Oh yeah, it was the worst 40 minutes ever, right? And then like as he started doing what great players do, which is just they believe in themselves and they have patience and they let the round, they don't force things, and they let the round sort of come to them because that's how good they feel they are. They feel like they're going to get their looks. They don't have to force it. You know what I mean? And they can just play. And I'm not sure I ever played that way. You know what I mean? Like, I always had a little bit of a forceful hand in what I was doing on the golf course. When the pressure was really, really on, I wasn't my most carefree and relaxed. That's for damn sure. I was definitely pressing the envelope.
Yeah, and that surprises me. We talked about that a little bit at lunch, is how the way you are, like your personality, being very confident. I wouldn't say cocky, but like, confident in your abilities. And I can only imagine when you were like at your peak,
right? Like
why you weren't that way under pressure.
I know.
And we were, it's funny, like the little discussions that we had the last couple of days, just watching movies, like we kind of share that passion of, right? Like obscure movies and like talking about actors and how they kind of get into that role.
Yep. And
I think that's something definitely worth exploring, is how do we get our players to sort of change the persona of who they are when they get into competition as opposed to where they are in normal life, right?
Yeah, and I think Genghis on your podcast said something pretty, I'm sure it might have gone unnoticed for a lot of people, but because it hit home very close to me. If anybody remembers my first podcast, when my dad told me that we'd be moving to Corpus Christi, Texas, and I kind of couldn't believe that. And then to back that party up, he told me I'd be playing golf and not playing any of my other sports anymore. My first response was, you're not going to get any chicks playing golf.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And then Genghis ends up saying, like, you know, I can tell a lot about a kid when he tells me why he wants to be good.
Right.
If a kid wants to be good because of fame or women
Or money.
yeah, that's ego driven.
Yeah.
That's scary. I got to make sure that, you know, one, he knows that, and two, we work away from it. Right. And then, but if the kid wants to be like just the best he can be for himself or for the love of the game or to crush people or, you know, to just be dominant, that's a totally different player.
Right.
Right.
So that's Matty Wolf.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, for sure. Right.
Yeah.
I definitely was playing for my daddy issues kind of stuff. I was playing for money and fame. Right. Like I saw myself as being rich and famous because of my golfing ability. And that's a very dangerous place to try to be competing from.
You think you were trying to please your dad in a lot of ways because maybe he wasn't, like we've already heard about your childhood,
right?
Where he wasn't there a lot of the beginning of it, and then you wanted to like say, you know, hey, here I am.
Yeah, sure.
Or was there a lot of that? Do you think?
Yeah, there was a lot of over trying,
sure,
and wanting to. I had a chip on my
shoulder.
Yeah, and I just, you know, I a lot of times, you know, I wanted to do it my way and not his way, and
rebellion.
And you know, it was like, you know, and then the times where, you know, I probably needed a hug, I didn't get it. I got a kick in the ass when I needed a hug, and maybe vice versa. You know, I got a hug when I needed a kick in the ass, you know what I mean? So there was a lot of things about my psyche and about my mental game that was pretty open to you know, falling apart because I was driven, I think, by things that were wrong. You know, and on the teaching side, and I've told a lot of guys that work for me in the past, like, that have complained about either the money they make or for this podcast, the money they're not making. You know, it's like, it sounds very noble to say if you're just doing this because of the money, don't do it.
Yeah,
like
100%.
Don't do this to become a rich teaching pro.
Right.
You know, like, you have to do this because at the core of you want to help people and you want to be a part of people's success story.
Yeah.
And you're willing to put your own selfish desires to the side.
Money comes because of that.
Yes, 100%, right?
Yep,
and
I agree.
And when I can convince my, you know, like the guys I have working for me now are much better than the ones before. It was just really hard to convince them of that. And I honestly think that if I would have been associated with some kind of charity, let's say, like, I don't know, like Children's Hospital, Shriners Hospital, or something like that, if 50% of me or 80% of me was just wanting to help little kids that couldn't help themselves with diseases that we don't know how to cure yet. I mean, this sounds pretty crazy, but like, I would have done better. You know what I mean? I would have fought harder. I wouldn't have been a pansy when I got the shitty wave. Oh, I got the crap wave, and he played late early, and I played early late. You know, it's like, it's like, oh, you know, I caught a gust of wind, and it plugged in the bunker, and fuck this course. You know, and it's like, you start finding out all these like weird ways to rationalize your mediocrity that day, right? When if you were playing from a place of that's solid on the inside, if you're playing for you and to be great and to make a difference in kids' lives and to do all this other stuff, then I think you'll fight harder on those adverse days, and you'll enjoy the journey on every other day. So that was, looking back, I really would have wished I could have gone and fed the homeless or done something that brought myself into a place of perspective that just wasn't about me and my ego, you know what I mean, that I had at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome spending time with you this weekend, and just little things kind of like stand out when, you know, you get to know somebody.
Right.
And, you know, we're on our way to brunch today, and guys in the middle of the road, like, stranded, and like you literally jumped out of the car and started helping him push.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I couldn't get out fast enough to, like, you're like already out there pushing.
Right.
Like, where does that come from? Like, I mean, you've got such a great heart and such a great, you know, persona of like, I want to help other people. Where does that come from?
Oh man, I don't. a lot of me looks at like, like we were talking about my mom today. My mom's a very spiritual lady,
Yeah.
Her and JC are tight. They text all the time. That's what I tell people anyway. So my mom's the kind of mom for the youth out there that you can't get a text without a prayer reference or a biblical reference of some kind. So she's just an awesome lady, and she's always trying to point me in JC's direction. But my mom used to say the saying like, well, if it's meant to be, and I'm like, Mom, I don't want to hear that crap right now. Like, if it's meant to be my ass, I got hosed. Okay. You don't understand. Lee Westwood's agent fucked this whole thing up. It's like,
all Lee Westwood's agent's fault. It's Chubby's fault.
Yeah. And it's like, it's like what I come to realize now is these close encounters that I had, but didn't break through. Maybe that was the reason it happened to me was so that it would push me in a direction to help people and not just help myself. You know what I mean? Because when I was trying to make it, it was just about what the house in Scottsdale and the Ferrari and the hot chicks and everything else that was going to happen in my life once I made it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was
the ego.
Yeah, it was very shallow, really bad stuff. I mean, I'm just trying to be honest right now, but it was at 23 years old. I mean, that's kind of what you're
right.
You're thinking about, and I have found with those original set of kids that I had, and even the kids I have now, being a part of their success story has blessed me and fulfilled me in a way that no 62 or 63 or Q school I don't think could ever have. And it's really a strange thing to say because God, I mean, watching Rory hold up that trophy and even watching, a guy like Zach Johnson win a major, and I'm sitting there going, Jesus, Zach Johnson's winning majors, and I'm, teaching 15 handicaps how not to swing left. Like what the hell's going on in my life, right? But
have you ever played with Zach?
Stop. So,
all right, keep going.
But that part of it for me is like, it's more fulfilling. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not lying. No. I'm not going to say I wouldn't want to be holding up the FedEx trophy with Rory. I'm not saying I'm even that caliber of player, but I'm saying that helping people and helping people do things in their life and them counting on you and you being a part of their story, it's just so awesome. It's just so fulfilling, and I would have never. Maybe I was put here to do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's
100%.
That's where it's just come from being around. When I realized that life wasn't about me, it was about what I can do for other people. And whether that means I'm doing what I said with that blind guy that fell. Yeah,
talk about that. Was there a moment? And that's the question, because I think we've all. It's tough to pinpoint, right? Even in my life, because there was a moment in my life that switched it. But was there something you could like go back to, and say, this happened and this sort of changed my perception of how I need to treat other people? Talk about the blind guy, because that was directly after you pushing this car through the intersection in Charlotte, North Carolina, and helping this guy out. Like, you get in and you're like, then you go into this story about this guy, and I'm like, oh my God, it's incredible.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's just, again, whether it's fate or I don't know whether it's JC. My mom must have texted JC that day.
She's
and said,
finally getting through to you.
Yeah, and said, put this dude in front of somebody who needs some help, and then show him what he can do. And so I'm just at a regular stoplight in a pretty busy intersection in Reno, and it's one of those stoplights where it's a good minute to minute and a half before it's going to turn, and I just happen to glance over to the right, and I can see an obviously blind guy, but he's got two grocery bags that he's holding, and about 150 yards from where my car is a local grocery store. So I'm just putting two and two together, but I'm assuming that this blind gentleman has left his house, found a way to navigate blind in the world that we live in into this grocery store, has actually found a way to shop for his own groceries, and now he's making his way back to wherever he lives. And I'm just like, at that time, I'm just going like, God, how insanely hard is that? Like, the balls this guy must have. Like, this dude's my freaking hero right now. Like, if any of us had to get blindfolded in our house with a stick and go, here's a stick, go to the grocery store, get some shit, come back home and cook it. Yeah. Let's see how long it takes you, right? I mean, dude, I'd literally be petrified. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? You can't see anything. You don't know where you're going, right?
Right.
So it's like, here I am just like, I don't know why it just affected me in a way. Like, I have everything. This guy's got, I'm sure this guy's got a lot, but in this case, he certainly doesn't have what I have, you know, in terms of sight and the ability to see things and do things, right? Mm-hmm. And he starts walking across the street, and he trips and he falls, and his groceries go everywhere. And it's a 3-lane, road that I'm on, and I'm in the right lane, and I'm the second car back from the lead cars. And like, what felt like it was, like 5 seconds feels like a minute, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, in that 5 second period, half of me is going, is the light going to turn green? Who's behind me? Who's helping this guy? Because somebody needs help. Is it me? Like, am I helping him? And I was secretly kind of waiting for one of the lead cars.
Yeah.
Door to open. Door doesn't open, and then I just went into action. Like on the 7th second, I'm out of the car. I put in park. I shut my car. I walk over. Now the light's green.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And so I pick this guy up off the ground, and he had fruits and canned goods and stuff, and they're the canned beans are like rolling down the fucking street. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
It's like his shit is everywhere. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm scooping up this dude's gear, right, and all of his stuff, and one of the bag is ripped, and so I gotta get it all in. I'm like holding it in my pockets and my shirt. So I get this guy across the street, and I just tell him to hold on, and I go get the rest of his stuff, and we put it in the bag. And I happen to have a laundry bag in my bag in my car, and because there was no way he was going to make it there, and I offered to drive him home. And he would not take it at all. I probably thought I was going to kidnap him or something, But right. but he was like super thankful, and he just said,
what did he say? Yeah,
he said, "God bless you." That's what he said.
Really?
If you want to know the truth,
wow.
He said, "God bless you."
Okay.
Thank you so much for helping me. I really appreciate it. This is something I need to learn how to do. He was very much like determined to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I didn't want to get in his way of doing that.
Yeah.
But what broke my heart was just the looks, and I mean, I heard horns honking. I heard people going, "Are you serious? Let's go, hurry up."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm just going like, dude, humanity has reached a really effed up place. If you're watching me fumble all over the place to help this guy, and you dudes are just honking and sitting there, and you're not even pitching in, like, dude, what's happened to the world? So to me, like, that was a turning point for me where I had to realize, like, it's not about me, and I tell my kids all the time, like, there's two types of people in this world. The next time when you're in your car and you're at the grocery store, any kind of, or Target or Walmart or anywhere, right? When you're driving and somebody recognizes that you're waiting for them to cross the street, and they give it like a little double step with a wave. You ever seen that?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, everybody's had that happen to them. It's like they don't know if you're going to keep driving, but the minute you acquiesce to the fact that you've given the right to them to come in front of your car, and they double step it on you and wave, like, and they get out of your way, they get it. That person gets life.
Yeah.
That person understands you did them a solid, and they're going to do you a solid, and they're not going to slow roll your shit. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
Then there's the other kind of person that doesn't give a shit about anything. Right? And not only do they slow roll you, they just assume that they kind of had the right of way, or they ignore that you're there altogether, and they like slow roll you. That right there, without you even needing to know who that person is, that person is self-centered.
Yeah.
And that person is wrapped up in them.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's that simple in life. The person that waves and does a double step to get out of your way is giving you props as, hey, thank you for waiting on me. I know you got shit to do, and don't wait on me. Good luck for you. Bye-bye. Right? And they get going. It's just that simple. People in life either get it or they don't get it. And I would just love to be a part of a world where people get it. You know what I mean? And they just understand that the minute you can just realize that it's not about you, like it's just really not. You know what I mean? Like it's like for right now, like it's not about Rory McIlroy, right? It's about what Roy McIlroy is going to do with his fame. You know what I'm saying? Like with everything he's going to do. He's going to open up a school. He's going to give money to these charities. He's going to do all this stuff that's going to leave a legacy for years and years and years to come. You know what I mean? Like right now it seems like it's about Rory, but it's really about what Rory's going to do. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of shit. So I don't know, man. I just I started putting my own, because like for, you know, everyone always says like it's the famous line, right? Like when you're a single child, which I am, like, oh my God, you're a spoiled brat. Oh, you're so spoiled. Yeah. I was like, no, I'm not. Not me. Like, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not. I mean,
definitely weren't.
I'm definitely not spoiled. Like, I've got plenty of stories to prove how unspoiled I am.
I know.
Right? But being selfless is just as addictive as being selfish. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's why it's hard for guys like you and me to say no. Yeah. You know, like if I've got, and I do this all the time on my Saturdays, and it pisses my wife off. And it, you know, my wife, if my wife had $1 for every time she goes, when are you going to be home? And I go 4, and I come home at 6. When are you going to be home? 3:30, 5:30. You know what I mean? Because at some point, a parent's going to call me. Yeah. Or someone's going to poke their head into the shop, and they're going to want to talk to me. You're going to
run into somebody.
I'm going to run into somebody, and then I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to help somebody. Hey, man, can you come help me, you know, get these boxes down from my attic or whatever it is, right? Yeah. And it's like when you're addicted to helping people and that's your thing and you feel like you're pretty good at it, you just it's almost like the world finds ways for you to keep doing it. You know, and you have to find a way sometimes to say no. But I have a very hard time doing that. So if I have 8 lessons in a row with no breaks on a Saturday, which if any of us that have taught that's not easy. It's not easy to go 8 hours in a row, altering your personality, problem solving, being charming, being upbeat. And then you think your day's over, and like you get a text from a dude like on hour 7.5, and they're like, dude, I'm having a 911. Yeah. My shit's all jacked up. Like, can I please see you? I'll come at any time. And I'm like, dude, just come. Yeah. Come at the end of the day. Right. And then next thing you know, you're like grinding that 1 more hour, right, for that person. And
for sure,
your stomach, your health, your sanity, whatever it might be, is put on the back burner for just that extra hour so that you can be of service to this person. And then you'll get that text 2 days later, dude, what you told me, oh my God, it freaking helped. And I just won this tournament, or I just played my personal best, you know, and you're just like, yes, you know, thank God.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's that, man.
So what's next for you? What do you see 5 years from now, 10 years from now for Chris Trevino?
Yeah, I don't want. I mean, everyone's always said, "Oh, you got to start coaching tour pros, and you got to start coaching tour players." It's like, I don't really want to coach tour players. Like, you guys have scared me, man. Like, there's too many damn tour players are so
a lot of horror stories.
So wishy-washy, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be caught in that kind of world, because the you don't know me, bro side, that wouldn't be pretty, dude. Like I might get physical with a dude or something, you know, like it wouldn't be good. So I just, I don't really have the desire, to be honest, to be like traveling with the tour. Like, that's not my thing. Yeah.
Talk about the success of your kids, because I mean your numbers are pretty amazing.
Yeah, we've
right. So how many D1 kids? Like you talked about your kids flying the coop, right? Like since you started,
right?
Your babies. Talk about your babies. Yeah, talk about your babies.
Well, I've had some kids that started off with me really, really young, 10, 11 years old, you know, and kind of like they were with me when all I knew how to do was take people on the course and show them how to play golf, you know? Right. I didn't have any real swing methodology. I didn't have any real practice, you know, kind of things. It was just very raw and very, very, very militant and very, non-forgiving if you weren't on time and if you didn't do what you're supposed to do, that kind of stuff. And this environment that I created when these two little 10-year-olds walked into this environment after it had been created for a couple of years, these 10-year-olds are now 18. Hard to believe it's 8 years later.
Time flies.
What I mean? It's just crazy. And they're both, I've got one that went to, flew the coop to New York. She's playing at St. John's, Jill Beglin. And then I've got Scott Rosigno, who's at New Mexico State. And we've got another kid named Connor Motherway, who's playing for the local university, UNR, University of Nevada, Reno, along with Coop, Griffin Cooper, who's that kid that shot 29 and spanked me. Remember when I told you the last one?
Yep.
So he's back home now, and so I've got two kids playing on the same local college team, and they're going to be great. They're really talented kids, and they're once they kind of find their stride, they're going to be really, really good. But it's just nuts to think that 8 years has gone by with these kids, and they're now gone, right? And they're at this new chapter in their life, and they're calling me now from school and going, can you fix this? Can you fix that? I'm like, not like I used to. I can't, it's not like you can just come over to the shop and, take a look, so we're trying to find alternative ways to, keep the good times going, so to speak. But, we've had really good success. And like I said, at one time or another, every guy that I've had that's worked for me has been really helpful. You know what I mean? Like, these guys have played a big role, in helping the kids out when they were first coming on, and spending a lot of time with them, the Matt Newcomers and the Phil Snows and the Alex Trevinos and these guys, they've been with these kids every step of the way, and it's a lot of time. That's the thing that people don't understand. It's just like when you're grooming a developmental, young kid player, the amount of time you spend with them matters. Like, it really, really matters.
Sure.
And then whether it's just to talk about their girlfriend dumping them or whether it's to talk about, not getting along with my dad, and, have you ever dealt with this? I'm going, you think your dad's bad, bro? Come on, dog. Like, you want me to tell you a story, dude? I'll tell you a story, okay?
Yeah.
Like, until your dad throws your third place trophy out the window and you watch it bouncing down the street, and he tells you not to get complacent with third place, and it's like 100 people in the field, that's when you can start telling me your dad's a prick, okay? Like, your dad ain't a prick, dog, because he didn't want to take you to fucking Outback to have a steak after you freaking shot your 83. But, oh,
man.
That kind of stuff has just been, I've been really fortunate. The guys, when they have been, when my staff has been together, we've just been really about, helping these kids out. And, I've got a guy, John Draculich, who's just been, a really amazing mentor to me, and the indoor warehouse that we utilize, which is kind of the place where these kids come together all the time. It's without him, allowing us to rent this place and giving it to us at a pretty decent discount. He's just been instrumental in allowing these kids to have a place year round they can develop even when the weather's bad.
Yeah.
And so we've just done a really good job of kind of not letting kids do what kids do, especially modern day kids. And we just don't let them start telling themselves a story that they think is true, and we just don't allow excuses to be a part of the program. So it's like, it's not about your excuses, it's about adapting and overcoming and finding solutions to whatever problem you have. Like, like you said, tonight, one of your lines is, let's not talk about problems, let's talk about solutions.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm really big on that, that Gary Vaynerchuk, nobody cares about your problems kind of stuff. Like,
absolutely. Nobody cares.
You can complain.
Yeah.
It's just not going to get you where you want to go.
No.
Right? So it's like, are you done complaining? Yeah, I'm done. Okay, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
Right? And when things are that black and white for a kid in an environment that they enjoy coming to, it becomes kind of like a drug. you know, like you don't want to be the kid that's, you know, the only kid in the group that's making excuses and shit, right? So you start to kind of separate yourself from that kind of stuff and
right.
try to be the best version of yourself you can be. And I think my kids just do a good job of that. You know, still I sit up many a night going, how in the hell did this kid just shoot 77? Like how? Yeah. Like, I mean, come on. Like, you know, I mean, the last combine he did, he had like 86.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm sitting there going, what? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Human.
It's like,
and golf is really hard.
Yeah, golf is really hard.
Yeah,
they're playing courses they've never seen, and
there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, I mean, their girlfriend, you know, freaking didn't call them back or didn't Snapchat them or whatever bullshit they thought was going to happen. You know,
yep.
And it's like it's everything from that to, you know, well, my warm-up wasn't good. I was like, dude, we've already talked about warm-up. Warm-up has nothing to do with how you're going to play. Quit talking about that shit.
Yeah.
You know, but like when they're kids, it's the reinforcement, like the feedback loop has to be like 10x, right? So it's like you have to tell them that warming up, you have to say, you know, 156 times that warming up doesn't affect how you play.
Yep.
But, you know, and it's like, because when you ask them, have you warmed up amazing and played like shit? And they go, well, yeah. And I go, well, how come that's not a thing?
Yeah.
Like, how come it's only
Reverse
when you...
it.
Yeah, I was like, well, what happens if you just warm up like crap? Maybe you'll play great, right? Because you've certainly warmed up amazing and haven't played amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Like, let's stop attaching those things to those things, you know? So
yeah.
So, yeah, man, but for me, going in the future, I think I would really enjoy... I seem to enjoy teaching the teacher. That seems to be like a thing for me. Like the more I'm around you guys and the more I'm watching how you mentor other people, I seem to really like that. Mm-hmm. And I think if at the rate I'm going now with the hours I work, if I don't try to build a team, you know, around me and mentor some guys and really get this kind of TGI brand kind of rocking and rolling, you know, I don't want to be working the exact same hours I'm working now.
You shouldn't.
I would prefer to work the hours that, you know, I want to work, you know,
yes.
and teach the clients that can utilize, you know, my information the best, you know. So when somebody comes in the door, it's not that getting an alternative instructor is a watered down thing. It's just, I would love almost to have a putting guy and to have a fitting guy and to have a fitness guy and to have a, you know what I mean? Like just to have a specialty person that if this person's coming to us to solve a particular problem, have a couple swing nerds, have a fitness dude, have a club dude, you know, have a junior golf or two dudes, right? And then I can just sit in the room and watch the machine go to work.
Yeah.
That would be great for me, you know,
in
5 years.
It's going to happen. Yeah, I mean, you're in the right place with your, you know, with what you're thinking. Stuff we've talked about tonight. We won't share it tonight on the podcast, but I think you're in a great spot and in a good situation, right? You know, I mean, that's the thing. So, all right. So the last thing I want to talk about, because I just had an amazing Mexican meal, right? You just cooked for my family,
right?
How did you learn? When did you learn to cook? How did you learn to cook? And like, why? You know, why is that a thing for you? Because I was amazed at like how passionate you were about the process. I mean, really, and it just shows kind of, you know, there's a lot to that as far as the type of person you are.
You're peeling back the layers, bro.
Yeah, man.
Peeling back the layers.
Let's peel back the onion, man. Let's go.
You know, my dad is and man, now the alcohol's kicking in because I don't want to get too emotional.
That's
but
okay.
My dad was the guy that got me into cooking, and you know, my dad's the oldest of 14, you know, brothers and sisters, and all the men. They were a very, you know, jovial family, huge picnics, huge barbecues, you know, those kinds of things. And
the parties, I was just curious about, you mentioned,
my parents,
you know,
just
throwing a party or like having people over, like that's a skill, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
my dad was just like the host with the most, man. My dad just loved people, and people loved my dad, and he was, you know, he was very stern with me. You know, it's like sometimes they're like, "Oh, your dad is a funniest guy ever. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't seen that side
yeah,
yet.
Really? Oh, yeah, maybe later in life. But, but you know, watching my dad prepare for parties, you just watch, right? And then and then after a while, you know, you're cutting onions, and then after a while, you're you know, watching the grill, you know what I mean, while he's doing other stuff, you know what I mean? He says, you know, when these, and he taught me the whole, like, he was one of the first guys to teach me the whole medium rare thing. If you do the little, have you ever done this?
Oh yeah, the
right,
pushing on your hand.
Yeah. So like whatever finger you're touching is that little muscle, you know, is tougher. So he would be like, when it feels like that, flip it, get it off, you know.
Yeah.
So at a very young age, I just started learning how to do that, and then I just really enjoy cooking on the fly. Like baking, I don't like baking at all, because baking's like a perfect science. Like this much of this, that much of that.
Yeah.
And if you get one of the ingredients wrong, then everything falls apart. I very much like adding my own kind of flair to things, and because, you know, of my, you know, Hispanic heritage, and keeping my father's kind of like cooking legacy kind of alive, which is really important to me. I just like to cook Mexican food, and so I just, you know, through trial and error, man, I've had plenty of bad meals. Trust me, I've had plenty of meals that didn't pan out quite the way I wanted to, but you know, I've kind of got down to you know, I've kind of mastered, you know, 10 or 15. I can make tamales, you know, like you guys were talking about, like homemade tamales and shit like that, and these tacos have become legendary, you know, at my parties, you know, these little street tacos.
Street tacos you made tonight were like unbelievable.
Yeah, so you got
it was just cool. Yeah, and how you just were, you know, because my wife's a great cook, and she was super into it, and it was just really neat.
And everybody loves Mexican food, right? So
right.
I mean, most everybody loves Mexican food. So it's very rare to find someone's like, oh God, I don't like Mexican food. But most everybody loves Mexican food. But something about restaurant, especially like Southern California Mexican food in a restaurant, is the closest thing I have found to what me and my dad cook.
Okay.
Like my dad and I cook like what we feel to be like authentic Mexican food. Yeah. For some reason, whenever I go eat in a Mexican restaurant anywhere other than Southern California, I wouldn't like they should be paying me to eat there. Like I wouldn't eat that. Like that's not worth what I would pay for. Like the $20 plate of whatever I'm eating is not really what I would call Mexican food. And I don't know what happens in the bigger kitchens, you know, when they have to buy mass-produced products and stuff. I don't know. All I know is that when I cook Mexican food, it just tastes better. You know, and then anybody that's ever had my Mexican food, just like, dude, I would way rather eat this. And the ingredients are simpler. They're fresher, and you're watching it, and they're cheaper. I mean, the dinner we had tonight was $30.
Right.
I mean, it was
amazing,
and it was badass.
Yeah, it was really good.
So
we had leftovers.
Right.
And we had Seth eating with us.
Right. So it was one of those things where, you know, dude, my passion for cooking, it just came from my dad, and I just keep. I think it's another thing that allows me to be with people and give to people. Because like when people usually leave our house, they're like, dude, can I have some of that salsa to take home with me, or can I? And it's just kind of a way of just helping people and just enjoy life more, enjoy food more, and you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool, man.
Yep.
R.I.P. to Pops.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Because we had a little toast to him last night.
Yep.
And was proud to be a part of that.
I appreciate
with you,
that,
and
man.
and proud to be a friend of yours, and thanks for everything you're sharing, and this has been awesome.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. Part 3 in the books.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
You're the man.
All right, bro.
You're the best.
See ya.
What's up, everybody? Guru back here again with a couple of things before you go. First, big thank you to Chris Trevino for coming on the show once again and sharing some great stories and some great information on coaching and teaching that I hope you can apply to your teaching and to your life, and also to help your students. Make sure you reach out to Chris on Instagram and Twitter at Trevino Institute, or check out his website at trevinoinstitute.com, and then say hello or ask him any questions if you have any. Hit him up on the DM. Also, you can follow me on the Twitter or the gram at Golf Guru TV. I would love for you to follow me, check out my stuff, shoot me a DM, ask me any questions, let me know how I can get better. Also, check out my website at golfgurutv.net, where you can find videos, articles, and more information on my teaching and coaching. And if you have any questions or comments about the show, you can email us at golfgurushow@gmail.com. Or like I said, hit me up on the DM, on the gram, or the Twitter, or the Facebook. The Book of Faces is available as well. This show and all episodes of the Golf Guru Show were produced by myself, Jason Sutton. Music is by Zach Mullet, aka Cutta Beats. Leave me an iTunes review. Let me know how I'm doing. Give me a 5-star rating. That would be awesome, as it helps us to grow the show and to create this content that we keep giving out. And as I leave you with the infamous Jim Rohn quote, study, practice, teach, and then pass it on. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you next time.